Lost while continuing to make inroads with Latinos. Yeah.
All right, bro. All right, Ron.
What up?
Yeah.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on, everybody?
What's up? I'm just reading this Politico article that I just posted on the subreddit.
Yeah. What is that? I didn't get to hear too much of what you were talking about yet.
Well, it's just kind of trying to go about, like, they're trying to explain how Trump made inroads with Latinos.
Okay.
When he's so obviously racist, right? And they're not just like flippantly blaming it on socialism and then moving on, like a lot of them tried to do.
But that's like their go-to move.
But they're interviewing people who actually were organizing on the ground.
So what did they expand outside the well to figure out a different reason?
Like, kind of. I mean, they said. I mean, I could see they cite it like, oh, there's a lot of people who work in law enforcement and fossil fuels, right? Like, so I can see that as a reason why they voted Republican. And then there's others, they talked about in Florida, how they got the socialism stuff might have worked in Florida, but that wasn't flipping anybody, right? That was people who were already Republican, right? Like,
right.
They keep keep dancing around this about Bernie, right? Like, and lost the Democratic primary, but his embrace of socialism and Latin American leftist leaders was used in swing district races against congressional Democrats who lost seats in the House.
Come on, really?
Saying, they were trying to pretend that Bernie, after overwhelmingly winning Latino voters,
how could we blame the left?
Yeah.
Okay, so
they have this. They have this.
As the resident Latino on this show.
They don't have the data to blame the left, right? And
no,
they're trying
they don't.
To dance around it and just because they don't have to have the data, they just have to get people to think it's the left's fault. That's how Bernie lost the primary, right?
Yeah,
was the people liked Bernie's policies more. They liked Bernie as a person more. He had much higher net positives, but they were scared that he couldn't win.
Well,
so they voted against him.
Did you see the segment that Kyle did about Bill Maher, where he talked about the whole why the Democrats lost down ballot?
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah, I mean,
Bill Maher is just an idiot, though. Like,
look,
he's got such bad takes.
Bro,
like, he's got no.
It's so hard right now. Like, maybe it's not as difficult as it was before, but I used to really enjoy Bill Maher. Back in the day, I really used to like Bill Maher. I used to fuck with him. Him, Jon Stewart. I even sometimes prefer Bill Maher's views on certain shit over Jon Stewart. I mean it was part of my political upbringing and everything else about learning this shit where you start from a way, but. I mean, where he's gone to at this point. I mean, he used to even have Bernie on his show, man. But now he's just...
he's a rich old white guy who's got conservative takes.
Yeah, and he's just a rich old white guy who smokes pot now. I mean, yeah.
It's like Dave Rubin.
Yeah, exactly, PJ. Dude still thinks it's the Bush years. But, let's go to that Kyle video just so we can show what he does have some part right, and then he goes off the fucking rails. So, let's go here. Where's... All right, let's go to Kyle. All right, Kyle.
Obviously, Joe Biden. Bill Maher has an analysis of the election for us. Obviously, Joe Biden beat Donald Trump, but down ballot, the Democrats did really bad, and even Biden underperformed. 306 electoral votes. It was supposed to be worst case scenario 320. The actual poll showed 351, so he underperformed. But down ballot, Democrats really underperformed. So Maher has some theories as to why that is. Let's watch.
Liberals can either write off half the country as irredeemable, or they can ask, what is it about a D next to a candidate's name that makes it so toxic? Let's ask Ruben Gallego. He's a congressman from Arizona, and he was asked how his Democrats could do a better job connecting to Latinos. He said, first, start by not using the term Latinx.
Yeah.
Which the vast majority of Latinos have never heard of, and when they do, don't like it.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
Pandering
that's
white
true.
politicians who mistake Twitter for real people.
Ugh.
And don't get it that Latinx is like fetch. You can try to make it happen, but it's never gonna.
Oh,
my
dude.
God, it's like not funny either.
Oh,
like,
dude.
Even though he's correct on that,
Virginia
it's not
Congresswoman
funny.
Abigail Spanberger said after the election, if we are classifying Tuesday as a success, we will get fucking torn apart in 2022. That's
all right.
Yeah,
I mean, she's right.
Who said that, Spanberger?
Yeah.
She's a fucking CIA spook. There's no reason she should be running in the Democratic Party.
Defund the police.
I just don't understand.
Okay, now this part where
she has the
okay, there we go.
Pennsylvania
That's not right either.
Yeah, no.
It might work with some, it might have explained a handful of people, but like,
all right,
like we did with the Clyburn segment.
Let's pause that really
week.
fast. Okay, so they keep he did a thing right there where he crossed over the culture war shit with the whole with the defund the police thing, which actually is a good idea. And when you break down what the policy is or what the implementation of that would be, it would be popular. If you want to go ahead and say, let's reallocate funds to social work, to mental health professionals, that makes sense to people. Reallocation, actually, when you explain it that way, it makes sense to people when you're talking about defund the police. But then, but see, what Bill Maher did there was a real stupid thing, which is, okay, you're talking about Latinx, which, okay, I'm on board on. I hate that fucking term. You know, me as a fucking Latino, I hate that shit. But then you're going to go and cross it over to, that's the same as defund the police, and that's the same kind of detriment to the Democrats' chances in 2022? No.
They don't have data to prove the defund the police connection. That's what drives me nuts about all these, like, election.
He thinks the smugness is common.
Like, that they have the data points to prove one thing, right?
Yeah,
like,
look, and yeah, to PJ's point, yeah, no Democrat really ran on defund the police. But the thing, the difference with AOC is she paid attention to the activists that were calling for it, and the only one that really did embrace that term to that point as an electoral measure, I guess, was Cori Bush, and she won. So yeah, you want to talk about defund the police? She's not shying away from it. She's going out there talking about defund your butts. Yeah. So,
but like it's a larger issue is allowing your opponent to define you, right? To come up with the narrative that people are going to think of.
Right, exactly.
And that's what the Democrats did, because they tried to run on not the Republicans, right? That was their basic strategy.
And it's the same answer that Joe Biden had to every time Trump would try to tie him to the far left. He would do everything to say, I'm not a far leftist. I'm not a socialist. I'm a neoliberal. I'm against the socialists. And it doesn't matter. You're painting yourself into a box anyway. You know, and from the jump, it's okay. And I keep going back to my experiences when I was on the Texas Platform Committee. It's the same kind of thing. They're gonna call us socialists. What are the Republicans gonna tell us? The Republicans are gonna define you any way they want to.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't matter what you do. You can run as a diet Republican. They're still gonna call you the lesser of two socialists at best.
That's what it is, and it's who knows like what sticks in people's head, like what is the thing that they're gonna keep in mind. But like all of this stuff doesn't help, and it's just when you go on your platform, your platform that you're for is saying Latinx, you know,
right?
Like defending Black Lives Matter. What else? Like. What else would you say the Democrats affirmatively ran on, like something that they were for?
I mean, it's all this culture war concession shit. You know, you can't, and it's the same thing that Andrew Yang was talking about when he was saying he was going around talking to people like truck drivers, right? And they were like, "Oh, you're a Democrat. You're not for working people." Is kind of the attitude.
Yeah.
Right.
No, yeah, exactly. People would think of them as coastal elitists.
Yes.
And they can do that by trying to embrace the policies that people like. It's not hard to see, oh, this policy polls well. We should run on that. Instead, they do the exact opposite. They start with their conclusions and try to backfill in, rationale
and then
for
when
it.
their bullshit of not standing for anything doesn't work, then their first instinct was, oh, it's the far left. It's the left with their crazy radical, internationally moderate positions that are actually reasonable once you explain them to people. That's the problem. That's the real issue out here. That's why all the blue dogs lost and none of the people that signed on Medicare for all lost. But let's go back to Bill Maher now. Okay.
So wait a minute, they're trying to say that AOC called for a Goya boycott, and I don't think that's what the post that they're citing to say that is her quote tweeting the guy, the CEO at the White House.
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, look, it's the sound of me Googling how to make your own, what is that? Adobo.
Adobo.
That's not her
like
calling for a boycott of Goya. Yeah, that's not her saying boycott Goya. That's her saying, like, I might consider not buying Goya. Like, it doesn't even say Goya. It's how to make your own adobo. And they're saying that is why.
You think
that's where the calls to the boycott come from.
Do you think they're just upset because they're not buying something?
I'm sure plenty of shit libs said to boycott Goya. I'm sure like the Don Winslows and like the losers like that all said to do it. But I
I'm gonna
don't think any congressman said that.
Yeah, I mean, so what if I come on the stream and I teach y'all how to make like some El Paso guacamole, then I'm calling for a boycott of whoever makes it. I don't know. It seems like a stretch to me. But let me go back. To the Bill Maher thing. Let's see.
Thank you. There, in my opinion, is the crux of the problem. Democrats too often don't come across as having common sense to a huge swath of Americans.
Yeah, but that's true, though.
People who believe in QAnon. But as I've said before,
but that's true, though, because they run on these like culture war issues that only matter to these academic, urban professionals.
Yeah, but like what Kyle is gonna say, in the video, he's gonna go ahead and mention this point. Everybody thinks they have common sense, and everybody thinks that their position is common sense. So I mean, he's not really saying.
No, the Democrats know. They know the strategist types. They know that nobody cares about this shit.
Right.
It's all virtue signaling, like you said. They're trying to show that they have a positive worldview, and they're sympathetic to workers, and they're sympathetic to the poor and the middle class because they're sympathetic on this esoteric culture war issue. Like, because they're pro-choice, then that means that they actually care about people or something. They're trying to make people, they're dog whistling their virtue, basically, right? Like, they're trying to imply that they're virtuous without going in on any kind of policy. And like, people just don't like bullshit. People hate bullshit from politicians, right? Like, even if it's the right kind of bullshit, like even if they were like,
even if it's very good bullshit,
even if they were disingenuously claiming to support Medicare for all, like that might be different because that's a strictly economic policy. But if it was like anti-war, right? People are strongly against war. People are strongly against the military budget. So if they were trying to imply that they were, that they were anti-war in like a sort of bullshit way, people would see through that, right? And if it's not, like, they need to specifically say what they're affirmatively for, not have people imply that they are, because it doesn't translate, right? It doesn't translate to anybody.
All right, let me play the thing through. We're gonna keep stopping him every time we think he's bullshitting.
You have to wear everything anyone on your side does. Republicans are the party
because you don't
wear
speak
masks,
to anything.
Kids in cages, lock her up, and Democrats are the party of every hypersensitive social justice warrior, woke bullshit story in the news. They're the party that disappears people. or tries to make them apologize for ridiculous things. I talked to a guy in the Midwest once who told me this story about the day he went out to get his car in the supermarket parking lot, but couldn't back out because a mother and her very young daughter were standing behind his car, which was next to their car, which had a Hillary bumper sticker on it. And the little girl was screaming at her mother, who was profusely apologizing to the child. And he said to me, I just can't let people like that take over this country. That's what people vote on, not policy.
Oh.
Democrats kept saying in the campaign, you can't possibly think Trump is preferable to what we're selling. And many voters keep saying, yes, we can. In fact, our primary reason voting for him is to create a bulwark against you, because your side thinks silence is violence and looting is not. Because you're the party of chasing speakers off college campuses and making everyone walk on eggshells and replacing let's not see color with let's see it always and everywhere, formerly the position of the Ku Klux Klan. It would be so easy to win elections if we would just drop this shit.
Good point, PJ.
Democrats need to listen to our new president-elect's old boss.
This idea of purity and you're never compromised and you're always politically woke and all that stuff, you should get over that quickly.
Like Obama's not very smart, right? Like in a lot of ways, like his.
You know, I love this because there's zero evidence for any of the stuff he's saying.
Exactly.
Listen, I'm as anti-social justice warrior
evidence for the
as
Latinx
anybody.
thing.
I've done a million segments on that stuff on this show because I think they get ridiculous. But there's nobody ran on a platform of being a social justice warrior. You know, nobody's out there forming a pink hair caucus. That's not a thing. Even the go-to examples that these people have been using, nobody ran on it. Nobody ran on defund the police. Nobody ran on that. Or actually, maybe one person ran on that, and that would be Cori Bush, and she won. But by and large, nobody ran on defund the police. This is what activists are saying in the streets. And they're saying it because in these particular communities, there have been really terrible issues with the police, like killing of unarmed people, or they feel like they're under some sort of military occupation. But nobody's running on these things. And so this analysis of the election, there's just no evidence for it. This assertion that, like, every time somebody looks at a Democratic politician, they see the most insane college social justice warrior on a campus kicking people out because they said something offensive. No, people care about their wallets. People care about COVID-19, their wages. I mean, it's all about the kitchen table issues. That's the bread and butter. But this like weird elite liberal analysis is sort of like denying a material analysis now and going right towards, hey, here's the thing that pisses me off because people yell at me when I make shitty jokes. And so now I'm going to extrapolate that as if it's the biggest issue in the election in the country. By the way,
no, the
they've looked into a lot of this stuff, okay? And
they made so there was, an issue, and
I
Democrats
forget her name, but there was
a
Democratic congresswoman who lost. And afterwards she said, it's because AOC and socialism, and this is why I lost. So Waleed Shahid of Justice Democrats went back and took a look. Let's see the ads that were ran against this Democratic congresswoman. Virtually everyone was about how she's corrupt. So the real issue, and by the way, she is corrupt. So the real issue was a Democrat was corrupt. It was called out by the Republican. So the Republican won. And then they turn around and go, AOC and socialism. No, it's your fault because you're corrupt. But more importantly, and this is the most important point, Bill, the problem in the election was the Democrats ran on platitudes, cliches, and Trump bad. And it turns out platitudes, cliches, and Trump bad only get you Trump defeated barely with Biden underperforming, and down ballot, the Democrats did terrible. The whole argument from the Democrats for the past few years have been Trump is really, really, really bad, but it's okay because other Republicans are great. Now watch me snuggle up to Mitt Romney and Jeff Flake and John Kasich. Well,
all right. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a couple of things there that I wanted to go back to. So Bill Maher made that point about, okay, they don't, people don't vote on policy. which I don't think is
They
true
would
at
if
all.
you gave them policy
exactly,
to vote for.
Exactly. They would if you made the argument on policy. Like if Joe Biden goes into Florida and runs on a living wage, then maybe his final vote total will look more like the way that the living wage vote looked. You know, if you're not going to go ahead and run on any kind of policy, or you're not going to define yourself like you're talking about, Matt, then you're going to get defined in a caricature by a Republican. And the Republican is going to paint you as what you're not wanting to look like, Bill Maher, which is a social justice warrior with the pink hair and a pussy hat. That's exactly what they're going to picture you as, because you're not defining yourself. You're not running on anything. It's exactly what Kyle said. You're a bunch of platitudes and cliches and Trump bad. You know, and you know, for what he's talking about with that congressperson, in that case, you know, you're not owning your own corruption. If you get owned in a campaign and by a bunch of attack ads that are pointing out how shady your dealings are, then maybe that's the fucking problem. Maybe you gotta own that. You know, you gotta hang that L up on your resume, because you know what, you made your own fucking bed by that point.
Yeah, no, but I don't know if they are just incapable of doing anything real, because I don't think that they don't want to take the side of anything. They don't want to like support a policy that they can't get passed, because then they think that makes them look like losers, right? Mm-hmm. Like they don't want to say, oh, we're going to do Medicare for all, and then turn out they can't get it passed, because then they think that they look terrible for not being able to do it. But like the problem was not that they're losers, because they are losers, right?
Right.
They don't get anything as it is. The problem was that they don't stand for anything. Like Bernie said in that PBS segment, right? It's like, if you allow them to define you, if you allow them to make the conception of yourself that that sticks in the voter's head, then whatever the Republicans say, like, oh, they're, you know, you're the bad kind of socialist who wants to, you know, make everything like some pink-haired college kids, you know, like woke-splaining, you know, right. Like that's going to stick. If you try to run on, I'm not what those guys are, it doesn't matter how much you deny it, that's still going to stick in people's heads. You have to be for something. You have to, instead of saying, oh no, we're not going to defund the police, you have to explain what that is about. You have to explain the issue to people. The same thing with everything. Like they went with that, instead of demonizing Bernie in the primary for saying a very rational take on Castro, which was Obama's official stance, right? Right. Like that was their stance for 8 years, and then because they wanted to use it to beat Bernie with, they had to like
ramp up
all of a sudden flip flop, right?
Exactly.
Be like, Castro was always bad. Everything about him was bad.
Yeah, you can't even talk about like his, you know, what do you call it, literacy program.
But like the kind of voters who are going to assume that because you said Castro was okay on this one issue, that means that you're a rampaging socialist, right? Mm-hmm. Like those people were never going to vote for you. It's the same with the defund the police, right? Yes. It's like those people who support like law and order and, you know, beating protesters and all, they were never going to vote for you. They were always going to be right wingers, right?
Of course. But you have to
reach the other people.
You know,
right?
But these people don't really need to go all that far back for evidence of what happened over here. We look at how Bernie performed among Latinos. Look at how he did.
Because he spoke to real shit.
So yeah, you can have that whole scenario Bill Maher pointed out with the mom apologizing with a Hillary bumper sticker and all that kind of bullshit. But if you come out and the candidate that's in your district is running on a platform that involves real, like Kyle mentioned, tabletop issues, whatever it is, you're talking about Medicare for all, living wage, any of those kind of things, then that shit's not gonna matter as much. It's gonna be some rando that you ran into in the parking lot. It's not gonna be a voting issue.
I'm trying to look at PJ's comment down here. even if Biden embraced that $15 minimum wage, he barely talked about it.
Right.
And he didn't, he didn't make it the focus of his thing. Like, I still think the main problem was that they were trying to appeal too much to those suburban, theoretical, moderate Republican types. They were trying to craft a message that would not offend their base, not contradict anything that they was in the actual platform, but then also message so that, a 1995 Republican would vote for you. And I think that was the problem, because it just made everything you said sound like empty bullshit. It just made everything you said just sound like, the not sympathetic, not not believable, not plausible. Like, and it's just like this gets every time we talk about this, you go back into the feedback loop with the consultants, right? Their business, like their hustle is this kind of messaging, this kind of vague platitudes, this vague virtue signaling campaigns. That's what they do. Like, that's their racket 24/7. That's what they sell to other clients. That's why they're going to continue doing this shit, and they're not going to learn. No matter how much people say you need to speak to workers' everyday issues, they're not going to be able to adjust themselves to that because they don't want to, right? Like, they want to keep it as it is. Like, they would rather lose than actually appeal to people's material needs. And I think that it's like, in order to be a mainstream Democratic candidate, you have to basically already be rich and in those circles, right? Like, you need to have X number of dollars to be able to run. Like, it's like $250K or whatever just to put your name on the ballot, just to get signed up with the DCC. You have to have rich friends. Like, they don't let you run. That segment was about how they pick candidates. You have to go through the Rolodex and find how many rich people they're friends with. Like, that's real. So these people, if you're getting into the position, like if you're John Ossoff, right, that's what you care about, right? You're a rich guy who cares about other rich guy stuff. Right. It's very hard to get a grassroots candidate, and they're going to do everything they can to demonize you and not help. And it doesn't really matter how progressive or not you are, because you're going to be stuck with the regular parties, their consultants, all of that stuff with that is their messaging. Yeah. Well, so it's just
let's see what PJ said here. So there's a false feedback loop here though, where because Bill Maher says life ain't Twitter. Yeah, no shit. But a lot of media relies heavily on Twitter for their leads and content, which they then push out of on all the other mediums. So is it a matter of Twitter just being Twitter, getting amplified to something more than it is or should be?
Life is Twitter. I kind of hate that expression. Yeah. People say life ain't Twitter, or Twitter ain't real life and all. First of all, because it's not true. In the primaries when I was canvassing, and I remember talking to you when I was in Iowa, I'd election night, I'd come back to my hotel room after knocking doors all day and then running the, doing the precinct captain and talking to voters, real voters all day. I still had no idea how it was going to go, right? Because I only had met the people I talked to. Right. So I'd only talked to a couple hundred people. So what did I do? I looked on Twitter to see what other organizers were doing. So I don't see how it's not real life. I mean, in the aggregate, right? You add up all the different experiences. What's not life is a mainstream journalist, right? That might not be life to them, right? Because they're presenting this version of themselves that they want the other professionals to take in, right? But real people who are just using Twitter, I think are mostly pretty real, right? I don't lie on Twitter, I'm sure some people exaggerate.
Well, there is a little bit of a dynamic though that you do see on Twitter where you see people kind of being real hyper cognizant of what they say on there because they don't want to get canceled for some shit that they say. I mean, so you have a little bit of that where they kind of put a public image up there that they feel is more acceptable. But I mean, by
But
and
I
large,
don't
when you're talking
think-
about your views and what you believe in and where you land on certain issues, or when you're just talking, I mean, you land where you land. And by and large, when you're talking about these changes or even policies that that go around in different Twitter circles, there's a consensus that mirrors national polling. So, but let's go to that article that you pulled up on the from Political. So yeah, cool. So culture wars fuel Trump's blue collar Latino gains.
That's what we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah. So I mean, but yes, despite 4 years of being defined as a racist, he improved his margins in 78 of the nation's 100 majority Hispanic counties. He did better with Latinos in exit polls of each of the top 10 battleground states. So
because this is the same thing with defining them, right? Especially in people who don't, English isn't their first language or isn't their main language, right? You are going to basically let the Republican messaging is going to define you in these voters' heads, right?
Right.
You are not like your messaging, because it's so like transparently bullshit, right? It's so like wishy-washy. It's basically Trump is bad. Like, look how terrible he's running the coronavirus. He did a terrible job at it. And you know what? He's also racist, right? Like, that was their strategy.
Right.
It's
but
like,
then when you had, the whole thing about being, with Joe Biden being tied to setting up the damn cages. And then when you saw a bunch of these videos circulating around when you had immigration activists trying to talk to Joe Biden about, hey, well, what about this stuff that you did? You have to kind of, are you going to do something about that or do something to be better about this situation? Then he tells you, go vote for Trump then. I mean,
voters saw that.
Yeah, when voters see that
videos.
kind of shit and they see viral videos of you talking to people that look like me
it's like
and
Christmas
immigration
says,
is important to them, then that shit does stick with you. But I mean, look what
I think it's like Christman said. Like, for a large segment of working class voters, economic issues are just not on the table, right? They're neither party is running on them as far as they're concerned, right? Neither party has that. So you're basically just voting on the cultural issues because nobody has made economic issues negotiable, right? So if it's between this one party who's going to like shame you and tell you should always feel bad about yourself, or you should always feel bad about like different aspects of your community, like, and the other party who's saying like, fuck those guys trying to shame you all the time, just be yourself, or whatever they're saying, like, just work hard and do whatever you want to do. Like, that's what real Americans do, or whatever.
Well, look what it says here.
That's going to connect with people.
Joe Biden won Latino voters overall, but as post-election data trickles in, Democrats are growing concerned because of Trump's notable gains weren't limited to Miami's Cuban Americans or border region Tejanos. That's me. Although Florida and Texas stood out for their notable shift, Puerto Ricans as far and away as Philadelphia, Mexican Americans in Milwaukee drifted Trumpward. So Trump improved his showing among Latinos by scaling back some of his immigration rhetoric and engaging in sustained bilingual social media and TV ad campaigns that courted Latinos based on place of origin, gender, and religion. See, because there are avenues to be able to go ahead and talk to Latinos in those fronts. You know what I mean? And
which is what Chuck Roach has said the whole time.
Right.
Just go meet them where they are and talk to them.
Yes. So and you see, when I talked about in 2016, when I would talk to people about Trump and stuff and why would Trump versus Hillary and that kind of shit, the thing that got brought up a lot to me was NAFTA and Hillary pushing NAFTA and now she wants TPP.
Yeah.
That stuff that stuff actually legitimately matters if you go and make a case for it.
Yeah.
See, but I don't know about this shit. Like, I remember the boycott of Goya foods.
Yeah.
Well,
that kind of stuff matters because the Republicans made it matter.
Right.
That's the thing. It's like you could have had a response to that if you had made that an effort to. You could have had a way to center like the actual issues with Goya as far as there are any, because I don't think there really are any, right? But like saying
I forgot the issue with Goya, but there's so many different reasons
just
why
because
people
they were
try
Trump
to cancel
supporters.
them. Yeah, that was
but
what it is.
There was not an official boycott or anything. I read that AOC tweet to you. Just because an intensely partisan person, AOC, right?
Right.
The politics is her life. So of course it's going to rub her the wrong way that this brand is supporting the other guy.
Right.
But that's not saying that she's encouraging other people to not support Goya or saying Goya's a bad company. And it gets muddled because the Republicans are going to run with the most aggressive version of it that they can.
Well, and it doesn't help that when you go to the grocery store, Goya is one of the most affordable foods to be able to cook with. So but look at this one though. I didn't even know it was this high, but 97% of Latinos don't say Latinx. Zaragoza said, referring to a Pew Research poll on the subject, we're building strategy around young progressive activists and organizations, and they're necessary. We appreciate what they do. But a lot of voters are focused on, I'm a hardworking American trying to feed my family or build a business. And a lot of this language doesn't speak to them. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't like it. I think it's fucking stupid. It's annoying to me, actually, when I hear people using it. Because it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so, I mean, the idea, I guess, is to go ahead and make the whole Spanish language or the way you refer to somebody like me non-binary or what? I'm not quite getting. Is that the idea that you hear from people that why they use it? Is it somehow supposed to be a more woke version of how to refer to somebody who's
Latinx?
Yeah.
No, it's not gendered, right?
Yeah, so, I mean it's not gendered, but then so then you got a larger problem because then you got to go ahead and
you have to explain that to people, but
no, you have to retrofit the entire Spanish language. It's a whole crux of how it was built. You can go down the line of a bunch of different words. That's why you have the whole Spanish el versus la and all that.
And that's what that's the kind of social media. Like there was that Vox article. See if we can find that.
That talked
about the specific social media.
I'm trying to think of an easy word in Spanish just to so like a car in Spanish is a carro, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are you gonna do? Call it a carrex?
Yeah.
So it's stupid. So is everything gonna be like that? That's what we're gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna go in non-binary the whole fucking Spanish language and put an X on there, and then why even an X? It's not even how you pronounce an X in Spanish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm trying to find that one Vox where Vox went into more detail about the type of social media campaign they ran. About.
Well, let me go to this part on the article again because they talk about my region. Drama in the Valley. In Texas, a majority Hispanic Rio Grande Valley along the Texas border where Trump did well for a Republican. Progressive organizer Ofelia Alonso pointed out that Latino is a broad and imprecise catch-all term for members of an ethnic group in which people identify as black, white, indigenous, Asian, Middle Eastern, and mixed race. A lot of people who voted for Trump, while they're Latino, they're also white, she said, pointing to the city of Heartline as a Trump-supporting white city with money, or South Padre Island, where the class and race demographic is different than other parts of the Rio Grande Valley. More people have money. They're really organized around the fact that they might not get taxed as much, and they feel the need to protect their wealth. So Biden did better with Hispanic voters in the more populous Latino-heavy areas around Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. But overall, Trump lost the nation's majority Hispanic counties by a combined 12-point margin to Biden. In 2016, Trump lost them by 20 points.
Here's that article.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to put it in the message. Where's the?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that kind of shit too, with what they're mentioning. But it's harder to gauge that shit when you're talking about you had a basis to go off of in the primary, and you eliminate that entire aspect of your analysis for how things shaped out at the end of the election. Like, if Bernie would have been the candidate against Trump, do you think those point margins would hold?
No, I think he would have. I think he would have cleaned up. I think he would have gotten, a lot higher chunk of the Latino population. I think he would have gotten more of them who didn't vote. This is just the ones who came out to vote too, so it's probably still mostly older, right?
Right.
Like Latino boomers who, like, even if they are.
And like the socialism thing, I don't think bothers people like that bothers
it
Mexican
bothers them
Americans. Like, it doesn't bother Mexican Americans as much.
The way they ran, though, like
right, no, but I'm saying like I think that has more of effect on like Cuban descendant Americans than Mexican. Yeah, then you're talking about like Tejanos and people more on the west side of the country, and even other parts of the country. We're talking about like Puerto Rican origin, or like I said, Mexican origin. I don't think that shit hits home in the same sort of way.
No, but what does hit is them having all of these Facebook ads or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's like, like El Biden going to,
El Biden.
Like, he's going to like turn America into Venezuela.
Oh yeah,
and like he's going to send you to the gulag if you don't say Latinx. Like, that's the kind of ads that they were running. Right, and they had no response to it. That might get people. You're talking about, you have to say Latinx, and people exactly. That's what I'm saying. That was the impression.
I'm really gonna go up on this thing again. But I mean, okay, so we're gonna, if the whole thing with Latinx is to make it non-binary, we're gonna non-binary the prefixes to, like, you can't say el anymore or la. Those are too. That's too feminine or masculine. We have to come up with a whole new term.
Like,
it's got to be like,
not for nothing, like the academics who came up with that, it's kind of dumb that they made that, didn't make that jump. I mean, when they were coming up with Latinx.
Yeah, I mean, like with the academics that came up with Latinx are probably the same people that think Taco Bell's real Mexican food.
I mean, I have seen that it's like, it's actually, I mean, I have seen stuff that where it's more popular in like the upper middle class neighborhoods in like Mexico City, like other places.
Is it with really?
With the like woke Mexicans, whatever that is, like the woke liberals of Mexico.
Woke liberals of Mexico.
Like the Vox.com readers of Mexico.
Oh, dude,
like, they like the term.
Oh man, I still don't get that. I'll never understand that shit. The same people that call what people think of tacos here tostadas dobladas. That's
like they what was I saying? Yeah, the fact that they weren't running any ads targeted to Spanish-speaking people, right?
I mean, that doesn't help either. I mean, look at those little pitfalls.
It just allows them to be easily painted as out of touch elitists who don't care about you except as pawns in their culture war. That's the impression. It's the same kind of messaging they had, like that leave the plantation messaging, right?
Right.
Like, you're just you're just puppets to them, so they can try to woke shame the Republicans, and to a large extent that's true. Like that is how a lot of these strategists see these various like ethnic groups, right?
Yeah.
So then if all you see is stuff that's demonizing them, like you are going to associate that with them. And it's just like, you don't have to, like I said before, it's like you don't have to run a left-wing campaign. You can run a normie Democratic campaign with just better tactics, like better messaging, like better.
Well, I mean, that's what AOC had mentioned too, is they don't have any kind of social media game. They're all stuck in the fucking 90s, like.
Exactly. So I mean, that allows the Republicans to just define you however they want.
Right. So let's go to
resonates.
Let's go to
true.
Yeah, let's stick to this to El Paso story, because I saw this one thing that pissed me off today from my mayor. He was on GMA this morning, and he put his foot in his fucking mouth, or at least whatever. I'll just go to the fucking video.
Focus now to El Paso, Texas, where the city is struggling to keep up with rising COVID-19 cases. Hospitals are reportedly so overwhelmed, they are relying on jail inmates to help move bodies, and doctors say they are having to make wrenching decisions about who gets care and who doesn't.
Meanwhile, there's been some political bickering. Some back and forth continues between the local government officials fighting over how to stop the spread of the virus. Let's see what's happening there. Let's go to the man in El Paso, Texas, Mayor D. Margot.
The man.
Thank you so much. I know it's a very busy time for you all, so we appreciate the time. Can I ask you first, what is it you need that you are not getting right now, whether that's from local officials, state officials? I know you need people to behave the right way. But as far as resources go, people want to help El Paso right now. What do you need?
Oh, do they?
Frankly, right now, we're receiving all the resources and assets that we need. Both the federal government and the state government.
Jesus, man.
Over 1,056, I think, medical personnel that have been brought in. That's physicians, nurses, technicians.
Oh, we're doing fine.
This is our 5th week with this spike. I was hoping that we'd start to see a curtailing.
This motherfucker doesn't care at all.
Yesterday and the day before, we're below 1,000 positives coming in, and we tested almost 600,000 El Pasoans. But today we had another rise to 1,062. And I mean, as the CDC said earlier this week.
By the way, today another 1,000 dead, another 22 dead. Yeah, another 22 dead, another 1,000 infected.
To be hospitalized because of COVID than any other than the normal Caucasians.
Mayor Margot, how would you describe
did you hear that?
the situation there on the ground in the hospitals in El Paso?
Put that on replay.
And do you
than the normal hospitalized because of COVID? I mean, as the CDC said earlier this week, our population is 85% Hispanic, and we're 4 times more prevalent to be hospitalized because of COVID than any other than the normal.
Who's we, motherfucker?
Caucasians.
Mayor Margot, how would you describe the situation there on the ground in the hospitals in El Paso, and do you have an explanation as to why this is happening?
If you're the journalist at that point, do you ask them?
We're a highly vulnerable population, and it's community spread. What we found out that is, we did a deep dive from October 10th to October 16th in our contact tracing just a few days ago, and we found out that 55.11% of our positives were coming from retail shopping, primarily in what we would term the big major retailers, the big box stores. So it's a community spread. We're trying to restrict that as well.
You said 55+% is from people out shopping. Shut the shopping down. Why isn't that something you're screaming from the mountaintop?
The economy.
Because what you cannot shut down are the essential businesses, as stated under CISA with the Homeland Security directions. So I can shut down the mom and pop stores, and but that doesn't deal with the major box retailers, the Walmarts, the Costco's, you name it. Those are the ones that remain open under CISA guidelines. So all we do with a quote shutdown unquote is penalize the bookstore on the corner, and people go to one of the big box retailers, Sam's or whatever, and buy their books. We shut down the Hallmark card shop. They can walk into Walgreens and buy a greeting card. That affects
workshop
the lowest
messaging.
rung. I don't have control over that. But what I do have control over are the limitations on service. We shut the restaurant bar areas, and we had bars are not open, but some of the bars have converted to restaurants under Texas guidelines, and we have shut those down at 9 p.m. I did that almost 5 weeks ago today, yesterday.
Oh, great, 9 p.m.
To 9 p.m. and takeout only. And we understand from our code enforcement that seems to be working well. They're stopping the congregating. They can do takeout after 9, but they can't continue there. So we're dealing with those areas that we can deal with, but to do a quote shutdown only impacts those who are most harmed by a shutdown, and those are the people on the lowest rung of the economic ladder. You know, shopping here is a family event. It's multiple generations.
This guy's
more
such
than
an
one.
asshole.
Yeah.
We've asked that they restrict that. We've also gone to the major retailers and asked them to do metering, which is a limitation on the occupancy of their respective stores. And so Walmart has come back and said, yes, we're still talking to the others. We're dealing with the areas that we know where its spread has come from and trying to restrict. We have a mask order. We've had a mask order since day one. You get a warning the first time, and then it's a $250 fine each time you not wear a mask after that. But we're going to have to continue to learn to live with this virus until everyone is vaccinated, and we don't think that's going to occur until probably the middle part of next year.
It is certainly a long.
All right, that's enough from you. Ugh. Okay.
That message he said, right? Like, that's something that they workshopped. It's like this ties into what we were just talking about. It's like it's not that they have a good affirmative message for them, right? Like it's not like they have a good message for why they're good. It's that the way that their messaging works is that they're able to discount their opponent's message, right? They're able to take what the Democrats say and debunk it or somehow flip it around and make it a negative, right? Like they're not good at selling themselves, but they're good at shitting on the Democrats.
Right. So we had a comment from Veronica Carbajal, who was running for mayor, and we have had her on the show, and she's awesome. So this is what she had to say about Margot's comment. So Margot on GMA, Hispanics are more likely to be hospitalized than normal Caucasians. We have higher numbers because we are 83% Hispanic, and our population has higher rates of high blood pressure and heart conditions. But this is the part. We have higher COVID numbers because we've had an incompetent mayor and city manager unwilling or unable to see past their own racial biases, much less address systemic inequities in our workplaces, healthcare, air, and federal COVID, and shut down irresponsible and or unsafe businesses. Yeah,
I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right, though, because I think that the racial biases are part of it, right? Like they're aware of the disproportionate effect, and that's what's fueling their their lack of concern, right? Like they know that it's just poor working class black and brown people who are mostly dying, right? So they're seeing.
We also heard from that nurse too that kind of echoed that same sentiment when it comes to treatment, that there's a but I mean, there's an 83%, like they're mentioning, 83% Hispanic city here. And I mean, look, from what when Margot goes out there on GMA and says, I mean, you can kind of venture to guess where his attitude lies on that front, and the policies over here that he's implementing, I would characterize them like Vero did, where they are incompetent. There's more shit that he could be doing, and he's just not, based for economic reasons. The pushback that was coming from the county judge's decision to issue a citywide lockdown was pushed back by his office, by the city, and that's how it ended up going to the state court. And the state court was always going to rule against any kind of COVID lockdown. It's all right-wing controlled. Of course it was. So, if it was going to be a thing where you're wanting to go ahead and maintain public safety, then maintain public safety. But
it's like we know how to stop it. Like we know how to get people to stay in, right? Like at the beginning, people stayed in because we had to shut down. There was only the big retailers, like the way that he messaged that, saying, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to close down Target and the grocery store, so that's just going to hurt the poor mom and pop businesses. And it's just like, you have to bite that bullet and help them get through it, right? Like that's what a competent government that cares about people dying does, right? They understand that, so they pay them to shut down, or they back up, they backstop them, right? Every other country that did that was successful. It's like Bloomberg has this piece here. I don't know if you saw that that thread about the types of social unrest. They say, I'll just read it. Yep. In early November, 20,000 people marched on the streets of Leipzig, Germany, to protest restrictions. Flouting rules, all about 90% of them refuse to wear masks. A similar rebellion against social distancing rules has happened before. Seeing quarantines and lockdowns as unfair and tyrannical punishments, people took to the streets, and this was 1625 in London from the plague. And in 2020, people marched, rioted, or protested from Trafalgar Square to Michigan State House, sometimes armed with guns. There have been more than 30 protests in 26 countries between March and October. But the protests in Leipzig or Michigan, Britain, or Australia only represent one category of unrest. These rallies vent the frustrations of relatively well-off people living in prosperous and functional democracies. That's debatable. A different category, there are protests against governments or leaders suspected of being corrupt in Bulgaria, incompetent in Brazil, demagogic, illiberal, and even undemocratic in Israel and Serbia. The third type mobilizes people who fear for their livelihood. Malawi, how do you say that? Malawi. Yeah. Street vendors march with signs saying we'd rather die of corona than of hunger. Ecuadorians riot against the shutdown of state-owned companies and salary cuts. And then there are the protests that have little to do with COVID-19, but probably became more urgent or bitter in the pandemic's context. Black Lives Matter, for example, spread to at least 16 countries, from France and Britain to Brazil and South Africa. And it's just the start. COVID-19 has rekindled old divisions across the world. In the U.S., Black Americans suffered disproportionately from police brutality, but also from coronavirus. Now these traumas merge, and everywhere the poor fare worse than the rich. Even before the pandemic, we were entering the age of mass protests. The number of uprisings globally has been increasing by an average of 11.5% a year since 2009. COVID-19 is just the accelerant. It's interesting how they don't have any solutions, right?
Yeah. But just to jump back really fast, I wanted to throw out this article too because of how that my mayor mentioned that we're getting all the resources to fix the problem. Well, the Texas National Guard now has deployed personnel here to help with the morgue overflow, just to give an idea of how things are going here.
That's good for them.
Yeah. So the Division of Emergency Management said in a statement after completing an assessment of the situation on the ground in El Paso County, the state has mobilized a team of 36 National Guard personnel to provide mortuary affairs support beginning at 0900 tomorrow. That a rapid increase in cases and hospitalizations has brought on a spike in deaths. Oh, you'd think. The Texas military will now provide the critical personnel to carry out the city's fatality management plan. This is fucking dystopian, bro. El Paso City and County has secured a central morgue location to further support the medical examiner's office, funeral homes, and mortuaries with additional capacity. There are more than 300 people in intensive care across El Paso County due to COVID-19. Earlier this month, they were bringing in 10 temporary morgue trailers. So many have died that the county has posted job openings for morgue attendants. And El Paso was paying prison inmates $2 an hour to move the bodies, and we talked about that. Mm-hmm. Apparently now they're taking on volunteers and paying them $27 an hour.
Damn.
Yeah. So El Paso is just one area being hit hard among the nationwide virus surge. The U.S. recorded 195,000 new cases, but El Paso health officials reported 1,074 new COVID-19 cases, 8 deaths on Saturday, bringing the totals to 80,000 cases and 853 fatalities currently. And yeah, I think that this is an older article this was from today. So yeah, I guess this is from today. We only lost 8 people compared to I think it was 22 yesterday. So
not bad.
Yeah, we're looking in the right direction, I guess, right, Matt?
Yeah. There's this thing about Biden wades into coronavirus relief fight. What's this say? Yeah, I haven't seen anybody with any kind of like suggestion on how to actually deal with any of this shit.
Yeah.
Right. Like nobody.
Yeah, I mean, we did that whole thing where we're answering questions about whether Biden is gonna make this thing better. I mean, he's already said he's not gonna do a nationwide shutdown. There's not gonna be any kind of extreme measure like that would go on across the entire country.
It's just
I mean, the best you can hope is for more effectiveness of a strategy that's unified across the country, where not varying so much among the states. But even then, I mean, what is it that he's really gonna do? And we're not gonna go ahead and get an implementation of an effective vaccine until the middle of next year at the earliest.
They don't care. They really don't care. Like we were just talking about before with the Latino voters, is they have their base. Like older, mostly white people in these suburbs, right? Like,
yeah,
that's who they're all trying to fight over. Like, they don't care about anybody else really, like, or not enough to actually expend any political capital or try to get a relief bill. Like, this is worded in this Politico article, it's like he's ramping up calls to Congress to pass another bill before he's sworn in, but at the same time, he's aligned himself with Democratic leaders in Congress who have insisted on roughly $2 trillion in relief spending, a price tag Senate Republicans so far have refused to accept. If Biden maintains a unified front with Hill Democrats rather than throwing his weight behind a smaller package, it's unlikely the two parties will be able to reach a deal before the year is out. See, that just shows what is wrong with the coverage, right? Is it phrases it as, oh, they just need to meet in the middle and come around some, and they need to negotiate and, do something middle of the road and come together on something. They're not mentioning the fact that the Republicans' bill that they want to pass doesn't have any money for people in it. I don't think it's the corporate liability shield, and it might be some money for lenders and shit like that, but it's not. There's no $1,200 check in it. There's no unemployment insurance. It's basically just more cash to their constituents, right? It's not going to that. If they pass the Republicans' bill, it's not going to help anybody, right? It's just going to help the people who are already doing okay. It's just more money to the top. It needs to be they need to do at least what they did last time, and that's part of the problem here. Is just the media coverage presents it like both sides have compelling rationales for the bill they want to pass. They pretend that that the Republicans are working in good faith, right? And that they actually are trying. They're clearly not, right?
Right.
The one that they passed in the Senate a few weeks ago was, I think it was like $500 billion, and it was all for, I think there might have been some for PPE and stuff, but it was the corporate liability, and it was just more of a giveaway to the Fortune 500.
But the thing I keep coming back to with these with the Republic, like the actual the elected officials. I mean, by now they don't how much do they actually buy into their own shit when it comes to COVID? When it comes to the seriousness of it, because the actual elected officials that are behind, they have the information and they're not stupid. They're not subject to the propaganda, but it seems a little bit of them sipping their own fucking tea, right? Because just by. Well, they don't care about their own health. I kind of feel like they would care about their own well-being, right?
No, they think that they see these Republicans keep getting it and then recovering, right? They know that they have the finest socialized health care money can buy, right?
So they figure they can just play their chance. Look who came down with it today, bro. There we go. Loeffler self-isolating after mixed corona test results. So she's in the Senate race against
Loeffler has it?
Yeah, Loeffler. So she got mixed results on it. So let me go back over here. So Reverend Warnock, the opponent, the Republican opponent. She had mixed results on it. She had an early negative diagnosis and one with inconclusive results, and now she's isolating. So I mean, this was when did she? There we go. There you go. So she said that she took 2 COVID tests on Friday morning when the rapid test results were negative, and she was cleared to attend a pair of events with Mike Pence. And she was informed later on Friday that a PCR test came back positive. And then another result of the PCR test on Saturday were inconclusive. So Senator Loeffler followed CDC guidelines by notifying those whom she had sustained direct contact with while she awaits further test results. So right now she's not symptomatic and will continue to follow CDC guidelines by quarantining until retesting is conclusive, and an update will be provided at that time. So yeah, here we go. Raphael Warnock has kept a busy schedule of rallies since her second place finish in the November 3rd special election. She's held recent joint events with Perdue, who is defending his seat on the other runoff against and campaign with Tom Cotton. So I mean, look, they're doing all these open rallies. I mean, they're famous for being super spreader events by now because of the people that have gotten sick just from after attending them. You know, so at what point do they start just buying their own bullshit, I guess? And I mean, is it just that they know that they can rely back on socialized medicine and they don't have to really worry about dying from it, even after they had somebody like Herman Cain die?
Yeah, I don't think any of
they're coming for Assange and Trump pardon.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and talk about Assange right now in a little bit.
They are going to they think that them and the people that they care about will be able to recover if they get sick, right? I think that's what their main priority is, and they know that the longer this economy goes on as it is, with this kind of crippled, barely functioning, the better that is for their donors, right? The better that is for the people who, at the very top, right? It's not even that their strategy is for the top 10%, you know, it mostly is, but really it's just more consolidation. The more that the second tier businesses go out and fail and people run out of money and can't have no more savings to keep themselves afloat, the more distressed their assets are and the easier it is for the people who are in no danger of running out, the easier it is for them to scoop it up, right? It's going to consolidate it so that the landlords, say I own an apartment building, one apartment building, and my tenants can't make rent, so that I might have a couple, a little bit of savings to get me through a couple months, if I can't get that money from my tenants and I can't evict them and find a new tenant, I might be able to last a few months, but after a certain point, I'm going to have to sell. And then who's going to be able to buy is, the next tier up, right? And that's what happened in the recession. It's what happened to what's happening again now.
Right.
Like PJ said with Guitar Center, somebody will probably buy their assets and, probably some Amazon type, if
they'll
not
go ahead and
Walmart
sweep up all these
someone
different.
Like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those.
Yeah, and they'll package it into their own brand, or they'll have a new spin-off banner. Even they'll continue to own Guitar Center and drive it into the ground. That's the private equity model anyway. Is to buy distressed assets and then kind of run debts as much as they can, and sort of sell the assets,
and then torpedo the business.
Yeah. That's
just real
that's
quick.
Already
back
COVID's
to
doing it for them. They don't have to.
Well, real quick, Reverend Warnock did have this to say. Senator Loeffler is in my thoughts. I pray that her test results come back negative and that she is back on the campaign trail soon. Bless. Oh, you're a better man than most people, bro. I mean, I don't know.
It's so fun. He's such a saint, in relatively speaking, in terms of a candidate goes, that the way that they can demonize him, they still find ways to do it, right?
Right.
Because they can't. I don't know what kind of campaign you would run if the Republicans weren't running on the other guy is whatever Fidel Castro, gay Fidel Castro or whatever, right? Imagine what kind of I can't even picture. I mean, I guess that they still run against the squad, right? They still do it like
I mean, they try.
Marjorie Taylor Greene did, right? Like she ran a campaign like unopposed.
She's shooting. I mean,
but that was her messaging was like, I'm going to go to D.C. and take care of all these socialist Democrats, so right? Stupid. Like nothing at all about like what her district needs,
right?
Like that's what I'm saying. It's these people, like it was already not about the economics for them, right? Like that's why they're successful at it, because they never had to do it. Like Democrats, as the traditional party of labor, they used to have to talk about wages and healthcare and stuff. That used to be what their constituents were concerned about. And like we obviously are, but they've abandoned us, right? Like they're only going for these people who don't care about it, and it's just about the spectacle for them. It's just about the culture war.
Yeah.
So like, same old for them. Well, just like the Democrats are trying to catch up, and it's not going to work because there's not enough.
And then we're not.
Like their brand is dog shit.
And look where we are at federally, where we're not even in a place where there's a stimulus that's gonna pass anytime in the foreseeable future. I mean, and Andrew Yang was up on CNN talking about this too. Let me see if I can get that really fast. All right, let's go to Andrew Yang.
Andrew, you tweeted this week. Let me read to you. I put it up on the screen. If we ask you to stay home, we should also send you money so you can do so. Without those funds, do you think any push for people to stay home during the Thanksgiving holiday and the upcoming Christmas, Hanukkah holidays, is that all that doomed to fail if people don't have money?
I talk to small business owners, Wolf, who feel like they're being put in an impossible situation where in order to have any source of income, they need to open their doors. And in some cases, that means pushing against some of the public health safety guidelines that are out there. So my tweet said it all, and you can tell a lot of people agreed with me that if we're going to ask you to stay at home, then we need to put enough of a lifeline out there so that you're not concerned about paying the rent, paying for food and fuel. This is common sense. Many other countries have done this. It's heartbreaking that our country's legislators have not been able to deliver in the same way that other countries have.
But is that realistic from a political standpoint? Do you think that's doable?
It's looking less doable in the near term. I remain optimistic that cash relief is going to be front and center because 74% of Americans are for it at this point, including a majority of both parties. And every economist who's looking at this says that cash in people's hands is the way to go. It's the best bang for your buck. I spoke to Jason Furman, who is one of the chief economists under the Obama administration, and he and I agreed that some kind of cash stimulus in people's hands was something that most economists would advocate for at this point.
Well, I mean, yeah. So yeah, Andrew Yang makes so much fucking sense there. I mean, he was a proponent of UBI beforehand when he was running for president and everything. So of course, he would be pushing for a stimulus. I mean, but it again, it only makes sense if that's what you're saying to the American people. This is what's required of you to address the pandemic. You have to stay home. Yeah. You have to close your doors if you own a small business. But if you're gonna do that, you have to provide some other means of income for people that need it. Or what are you doing? What are you gonna do? What are people left with if it's between getting foreclosed on, getting evicted, and going to work?
Yeah.
So cancel all taxpayer payments to Israel. Cut the military budget. Tax the fuck out of Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, I mean,
UBI.
I mean, you make me think that maybe, like, not that they would do it, but like, that's the kind of thing that they might have to consider doing. It is like, once Biden takes over and they still can't get anything done, they're going to have to start with that and like threatening certain like Republican giveaways, like stuff that's in the budget already for whatever, golf course management or, military aid to like, they probably wouldn't do military aid. They would probably try to cut like military budgets, or if they actually had to. I don't think they would. I don't know what they would do, but like they need to step it up. They need to get out there and fucking message better, right? Like I said, the mainstream media narrative is that It's the Republicans are offering one package of relief that's smaller and whatever. I haven't seen a whole lot of details about it specifically, but it's mostly just the corporate liability. And then the Democrats are whatever they supposedly have a plan too. That's probably a little more involved. They just give the money figures, but they're making it seem like they're equally compelling, and they just have to negotiate. When it's like the one is not a relief bill, like that's not anything that's going to help people, right? Like the Democrats might have something worthwhile, but the conversation is dog shit, right? They need to be much more aggressive about this. Like I've never seen them, right? Like I don't know what it would look like, but like Pelosi needs to get out there and yell about this every day and have everybody doing it, and not just the squad. Right?
Yeah.
Like people know that they're going to complain about this stuff, but like to have it like Abigail Spanberger and people like that need to start screaming. Like it's baffling that they haven't. Like I said, that speaks to their constituents that they care about.
I caught this tweet. I'm not sure if it's how accurate it is, but I mean it seems about right, at least on one sense, because look, Australians receive $19.93 a month, Canadians $14.33, Germans receive up to $7,300 a month. Americans can click here to donate now. There's one. Well, of course, in this country, we only received that one-time $1,200 payment in April, and it was calculated to be the equivalent of 1 month of full-time pay in the U.S. National minimum wage. It was sufficient enough income supplement to last for 10 weeks. They're 32 weeks behind between November 21st and April 11th. So it's a uniquely bad situation, again, as most things are in this country, where whatever the amount is in these other countries, they're receiving some kind of a stipend through the pandemic to curtail the spread. Whereas here we had a one-time check, and not everybody even got that check. That was the other part of it, and we're saying that the best thing to do is to stay home, and then you still have Republicans on one hand not wanting to pass it and saying keep everything open, and then the Democrats on one side, on the other side, saying close everything and we're not giving you anything. Yeah, but yeah,
that's what I mean. Like that needs to be, Biden needs to get angry. Like he needs to go on TV and visibly show that this is not good. Like it just doesn't seem to be any recognition from any of the politicians about how desperate things are getting for a lot of people. And so, the guys don't know what the plan is. Like Yang was saying about The Economist would say, give people money. Like it's really hard to tell what's going on when their policy seems to be just about like suffering, right? Like it's specifically not doing what they should be doing from any angle. It's just like pure like running on hatred, right? Like,
right.
It's really bizarre. Like I just don't know how they have so many of their constituents that think that that's the right way to go. I mean, there's no Republicans are out of work. Like it doesn't make any sense.
No. All right, do you want to talk about Assange?
I just want to read through the rest of this Politico thing to see if there's any details. Oh, look at this. Biden is entering negotiations that have foundered for months with Mnuchin and Meadows. To the breach now could be risky for Biden, who won't be sworn in for another 2 months. But Rahm Emanuel, who helped push an economic stimulus bill through Congress in the early months of the Obama administration, while he was White House chief of staff, said securing a compromise in the lame duck could allow Biden to use his limited political capital to push for other priorities once he takes office. One less thing to worry about is one less thing to worry about. No shit. Like, that has no... like he's not even stressing the importance of it, right? He's just saying like, oh, you know, if you think about it, it might be good that you could, you know, you could push for like salt tax reductions, you know, when you get this off the, like out of the way.
All right. What's up?
I want to just get some insight into what the thinking is from the right. Like, it's nice that they have all this about what Biden wants to do. I mean, what would you do?
With
what? Do you think? What would you do if you were Joe Biden and you were trying to get a stimulus bill done?
I mean, what can you do at that? If you're the only thing you can really hope for is try to get control of the Senate, and that's a long shot, because it's not going to go through. I mean, what is Mitch McConnell gonna? Mitch McConnell's aim isn't to go ahead and make something work for the country. His aim is to be an obstructionist. His aim is to outright destroy your presidency from the jump. So. You would the only thing I would think is if there was some legal mechanism to get a stimulus, at least a clean stimulus through executive order. That would probably be the only way to go about it. Fuck up the whole.
I mean, what did Trump do when he tried to take money for the wall?
He reallocated it from FEMA funds.
Couldn't they do that?
They
should just cancel like the F-35 contract or something.
Well,
you know.
Well, I mean, you could do it. I mean, if that worked, theoretically, you could kind of work this. You could use the same kind of legal mechanism where you declare a national emergency, right, and then you reallocate funds from the FEMA budget to go ahead and supply a stimulus.
I mean, why do you want FEMA though? Why not?
Well, because it's supposed to be like the emergency fund, right, for disasters and all that kind of shit. But I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be FEMA, but you could probably reallocate it from somewhere else.
I think Biden should threaten to do that.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the only thing you could do. Circumvent the whole bullshit. You know that's exactly the only option that's on the table. But yeah. So Pelosi should have taken that last deal. Now we get jack shit. Yeah, and she didn't for the same fucking reason, for political reasons, to not give Trump another win. So he
wants.
So that's his own. That's another thing in and of itself. The only way that this was ever gonna get through without something extreme like that, like using an executive order, was gonna end up being if Pelosi would have just taken that last deal that was on the table.
Biden's transition team is heavily focused on making sure the next package includes language on small business relief funds through the Paycheck Protection Program that would ensure that black-owned businesses and others that had trouble securing loans in the first time around are prioritized. Black-owned businesses are failing at a much higher rate than white-owned businesses, and those that have survived are at a significantly higher risk of failing over the next several months.
That's always the story, though. That's always the fucking story. Whenever there's some kind of bullshit that goes down into the country, it's always the black community. It's always a POC community that always goes ahead and takes the brunt of that shit worse than everybody else.
In part because loan program works through existing bank relationships that many minority-owned small and micro businesses lack. They said it was essential that this problem be addressed. They also want to get funds for state and local. See, that's the problem then, right? Instead of having a universal solution, right, they have to argue like in these micro-targeted like they're gonna have to have like specific languages for like black-owned businesses, and that's gonna make it so much easier for the right to demonize it.
Exactly. Look at what David just said. Got to inject the info bullshit in there. Like if there was, like
it's so bizarre.
Like they want to craft a bill that they know will get opposed and debated.
I understand. Like the thing is, it's like they should put this in class terms, right? They're so opposed to having anything be like.
Any kind of solidarity, just oppose it in any kind of way.
Like, if they were offering something for everybody, like language to ensure that like businesses making like X number of dollars or whatever, like like I said, using a class like matrix to evaluate it. that would make it so much harder for the right to attack it. And if they did, they'd look shitty, right? But now they're going to be able to like dog whistle around this and say, write it off, like they don't have to worry about it, and then they'll reach some sort of compromise that takes the language out, and it just results in all the money going to the richest businesses again. Let's see.
Well, speaking of
we may have to give something up to McConnell that we really don't want to give up to get it, but we simply have to do this.
He's not going to do it. He doesn't care.
What is on the what do you have to give up though? Like
a new turtle shell.
Like you need funding for the schools and other local government stuff, right? That has to happen.
There's nothing.
And you need to hit the small businesses.
He's either gonna take the Democrats for every fucking thing, or he's not gonna pass anything. He doesn't want to. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect him. It doesn't affect his donors.
A coalition of trade groups is doing a digital ad blitz.
By the way, did you see
transition team?
Did you see who was on Biden's transition team now?
Who?
There we go. Sidney McCain becomes the second Republican to join Joe Biden's transition team.
I mean,
the wife of the late Senator Iran John McCain. Yeah, let's see what it says. It's taking her support for the former vice president beyond an endorsement to join his team. Cindy will join Biden's transition team as a member of its advisory board. The Wall Street Journal reported on Monday she endorsed a Democratic nominee for president on Tuesday, saying that her husband lived by a code of country first, and that Biden is one candidate that stands up for our values as a nation. She won't be a paid staff member, really, but will instead offer her counsel to the transition team. Cindy's the second Republican to join the board, with Obama's former Veterans Affairs Secretary Bob McDonnell being the first. While Biden and Senator McCain were friends who spent afternoons picnicking, Jesus Christ, in the former vice president's backyard, there's no love lost between the McCains and President Donald Trump. In 2015, Trump and then candidate for president dismissed McCain as a war hero because, we know that. Meghan McCain has pushed back on Trump's comment. Okay, that's all. The rest of it is just a bunch of. They don't say anything about what she's done before professionally, really.
Yes, I'm saying I don't know.
That's the only reason I scrolled down on that stupid article.
Why don't you look at her Wikipedia page? All right,
let's look at what Cindy McCain's done to really qualify herself. She's listed in. Exactly. Megan, my father McCain.
She should say I'm Meghan McCain's mom. That's her claim to fame.
Well, unless she's going for like a variation of the Meghan McCain route, where she's gonna be like she'll become Cindy, my husband, or my late husband McCain. Let's see. She's listed in Wikipedia as American businesswoman, philanthropist, and humanitarian.
I mean, it's like the Democrats who were on the transition team are bad enough, right? Like you don't even doesn't even matter.
Pure political favor. I mean, American Voluntary Medical Team. This is something she did. There you go. She founded the American Voluntary Medical Team. It was an organization that organized trips for doctors, nurses, and medical professionals to provide MASH-like emergency medical care to disaster-struck, war-torn developing countries that McCain likely would like to invade or do regime change in.
I don't know. I'm not. Like I said, I'm not as worried about her as I am some of the Democrats on the team.
Yeah, I mean, the big one is that Rahm Emanuel for me still, bro. Like if he comes
they're
on,
all like that, man.
They're all like that. It's true.
Like the Silicon Valley ones.
But what's the logic behind that move though? Is it just like pure political favor, or is there some kind of optics that they're trying to play into? Is that another thing about trying to win over middle of the road Republicans?
What do you mean? I think it's the whole thing with talking about Republicans like they went overboard with it, right? They went to the point where I think it was disgusting, but like saying like we're considering having some Republicans in the transition team, like, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
No, but that's the same thing that I said before. Look, I would have less of a problem if they did include any kind of Republicans in this, if they also included leftists. If it was that broad a spectrum where you had everybody from Republicans all the way to actual progressives, then okay, then I would be like, all right, that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, that's an actual broad coalition.
But they're not like she's not there because she has good takes. She's there because they want a message to people that they're listening to Republican voices. That's the reason that Democrats do that, or traditionally have done that, is to symbol like, hey, like we're reasonable. You know, you should let us in charge because we're going to work with everybody. It also makes them think that you have similar values to Republican voters, right? That's why you would message like that. But the problem is like they went overboard with it, and then they do apparently have Republican values anyway, right? The negotiations with the Republicans always end on the Republicans' terms, makes people think that they're, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's just my take, right? But you don't believe that they actually stand for those like working class values that they traditionally ran on, and still try to message that they have.
Yeah. Okay, what's this thing that you sent me? Oh shit.
This is crazy to me, kind of.
Okay. Let me go to Joe Biden's tweet about this first. So here we go. Come on, you do your Joe Biden voice. Do your Joe Biden voice.
Here's the deal. Because President Trump refuses to concede and is delaying the transition, we have to fund it ourselves and need your help. If you're able to, chip in to help fund the Biden-Harris transition. I can't really do that good of a Biden.
Yeah, you've done one before where you go, look here,
here's
Jack.
The deal.
Here's the deal.
Listen here, Jack.
Well, this is what we replied from the show about this. So,
what does it say?
Here we go. Well, look here, Jack. Americans know you aren't looking for a handout. You just wanted a fair chance to get ahead. And a lot of people worked every day to make sure you got that chance. We sure you don't need any donation. Which was basically ripped off from an earlier tweet about Joe Biden talking about Americans don't ask for handouts. Which is ironic now, of course, because that's exactly what Joe Biden's asking for now that Trump is pulling some bullshit with the funding. So yeah, Biden is crowdfunding his White House transition because the Trump administration is holding up federal transition funding, and he's already raised $10 million from people. Jesus, man,
this is nuts.
Yeah. Ordinarily a presidential transition would be largely taxpayer funded, but that money cannot be released until the head of the General Service Administration, Emily Murphy, officially ascertains that Biden won the election. Despite the election having been called for Biden in all major media outlets, and despite the fact that key states have begun to certify his wins, Murphy has refused to do so. Biden has nevertheless begun the transition process, hiring onboarding staff as well as setting up meetings with key groups such as pharmaceutical companies that are working on a coronavirus vaccines. To help fund this effort, Biden sent out a fundraising email that tweeted members of the public could donate to the transition fund, saying that once he was forced to do so because Donald Trump's ongoing legal challenges of the outcome of the election is delaying the transition. Now, I'm assuming that once that they take over the administration and they have that Murphy woman replaced, that all these people that donated are getting their money back once they actually have access to those funds, right?
That's what they should do.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me, right? I mean the whole reason they're delaying this is because you don't have access to those funds, but once you do, that should be like a payback period, right? Where anybody that donate gets their cash back from the General Services Administration.
This is so fucked up, but it's also it's such a weird it's such a weird failure of our democracy, like of our government, right?
Yeah. So
this specific issue, funding the creation of a new presidential administration is, like, technically speaking, the objectively worst time to have people relying on donors like interest groups to pay them, right? You're saying, I need money now
just go
while
talk
I'm
to one of
hiring
your...
people for my new administration.
And there's
so that
151
when
billionaires out there that he took money from. Go ask one of them for $10 million fucking dollars.
I know, but think about the situation though. He's on the phone making calls to donors, and he has to call them and say, hey, Facebook, I need money to fund my transition program. What do you think Facebook is going to say? Like, okay, can you hire this guy?
Of course
can you
they
hire
are.
This guy? Can you change this law? And it's like right as they're staffing up, it's such a like an inopportune time for our
then do
failed
what I
state
just...
to rear its failed state head.
Well, I mean, do what I just said. Go ahead and tell these big tech guys or whoever that you're going to pay them back once you have access to those funds.
That's not what I'm saying, man. Like, that's not going to happen, right? You're going to pay them back in political favors.
Yeah, I know. You're not going to pay them back in $10 million or at least even on an interest rate. I mean, I would have accepted that as that would have been me trying to negotiate something out of it, but of course they won't. They probably wouldn't take that money even if I offered to pay them $15 million for donating 10 or whatever they need for the transition. But so
I mean, the thing is, they wouldn't be doing that if they needed to take a loan. They could get a loan from a private bank.
I'm sure.
Like, that's not. Really
then why are they taking donations?
Because, like I said, I think it's the other reason. It's like they technically need the money, right? So they'd either have to take out a loan or force it through. But they can do this, and it's an opportunity to call and, do these kind of negotiations as they take over. Right. They're going to be touching base with these people anyway. If they are doing it in the context of fundraising for their transition team, there's a lot of
ridiculous. But
like,
look at this word from the
benefit.
So this from the anonymous administration official who told the Washington Post that the reason for the delay is very simple. No agency head is going to get out in front of the president on transition issues right now. God.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you expect him to do?
Yeah, the law this
obviously
Presidential Transition Act of '63. The law calls for public funds to be used and puts the GSA in charge of its execution. Yeah.
Privately, the Biden camp has been fundraising for a potential transition beginning in June and has reportedly raised $10 million already. According to Politico, Trump raised 6.5 in 2016, and Hillary Clinton raised 2.1. Mitt Romney raised 8.9 million in 2012, and Barack Obama raised 6.8 million in 2008. They said they call up all the donors and they make this their excuse to call them and solicit funds. They say, you already gave to my campaign, why don't you give to my transition team, and I'll earmark X, Y, and Z positions for you, or whatever favors you need. We'll work that out, right?
Yeah, well,
like,
this is
obviously something that they do.
Well, this is the more concerning aspect of the transition stuff, is because Biden apparently is having a tough time getting access to intelligence and shit like that. So
that doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, I mean it kind of does. He should be getting up to speed on a bunch of shit that is probably not. He probably doesn't have access to without Trump's approval, right? So
I mean, I'm sure he could get it, because Kamala gets the briefings. So
I mean, yeah, but okay. So hold
he knows what he has to know, I'm sure.
So let's see. Representatives from the transition team did not respond to Vox's request for comment on the GSA's delay, but transition officials said previously that the team has not ruled out legal challenges. So the Biden-Harris transition has been planning for months for all possible scenarios. The nation faces too many challenges, and officials have spoken out about what a truncated transition period could mean. I had noticed the 9/11 Commission report found that former President George W. Bush truncated transition period in 2000 hampered the administration in placing key personnel in national security positions and obtaining Senate confirmation. And it says a robust transition between Bush and Obama may have helped avert credible terror attacks around Obama's inauguration. And the issues go. Apparently that's what they're saying. The importance of having all this kinds of seamless transitioning. So, health officials have also urged the GSA to begin the transition, warning that a delay could undermine necessary preparations to respond to the COVID pandemic and eventually distribute a vaccine.
Yeah, those reasons make sense to me.
Yeah,
like they need to stop the terrorists or whatever.
No. I mean, but we're in mid-pandemic, so I mean that's why it kind of makes sense that he would need some of these briefings. So I mean, so here we go. So Biden has attempted to work around his lack of access to key information and administration figures. For instance, he set up meetings with former intelligence officials to make up for not having received any official presidential intelligence briefings. Yeah. He recently held meetings with state leaders on how to better coordinate the federal and state COVID-19 responses. So
I don't think Trump's people have anything for them.
Yeah.
There's not.
They imagine that like there's like jack shit once they get to the bottom of it and they don't have any information to go on. And the next story you see from boxes, there's nothing. We don't. Apparently the Trump team had nothing. They were all, they were all in their offices playing Minecraft.
Like I remember over the summer looking at something about the response and seeing that like one of the important programs, I forget which one it was, maybe it might have been the P1, the Paycheck Protection Plan one, or it might have been like the mask distribution or something. But they had literal college kids, like interns, like in their early 20s. I think one of them had just graduated and the other one was like a junior, an undergrad.
Right.
Like the donors' kids or like some other workers' kids, like running this giant important part of the like the government's the coronavirus response. Right. That's the kind of people they had running these top in billions and billions of dollars in funding organization like aspects of the government. Then I have little expectation that they would have anything like serviceable. And I also think that like wasn't the vaccine distribution plan was from the military, right? So wouldn't the military have that? Can't they just give them what they already have?
Well, that's why I think they're going to have to continue these workarounds in order to go ahead and facilitate any kind of process. But I mean, as far as I find it difficult to think that they're not going to need some kind of information with all the shit that's going on right now, not just related to the pandemic. I mean, look, worldwide, there's a bunch of crap that we just have our hands in because of, U.S. imperialism. So who knows? And he has to. And besides that, Biden has to get the Area 51 briefings. He didn't probably have access to as vice president.
Yeah, that's what you think.
Just
like
saying,
I said,
bro.
Like I said, I think if there were aliens, Trump would have used them in his re-election bid.
Oh, you think he would have released what he knows?
Yeah, he would have said, like if he had just told us, like if he had released the info, like I thought he was going to false flag. Remember? Like, yeah. But if he had just released evidence, it would have gone a long way to endearing him with millions of Americans.
Didn't we get that shit about UFOs from the Pentagon this year?
Yeah, the ATIP thing.
Yeah.
That
they acknowledge that there's that they don't know the actual origin of these identified flying objects.
I mean, that was leaked a few years ago by the what's his name, Elizondo. Like, I think that guy's probably like some sort of limited hangout. He's like an ex-special forces.
But this was something acknowledged by the Pentagon now. I mean, it's an official government release.
It was acknowledged after it was leaked. Elizondo leaked it from the program. He worked for the program, and he leaked it.
They didn't have to.
And then after it had been it had been on the internet for years, the Pentagon.
Yeah, I mean, I would be more interested, I guess, if Trump had gone ahead and released a press briefing that acknowledged that we have recovered one of the crafts and it was recovered during an archaeological dig.
That's my theory. Did I tell you that theory?
No, you didn't.
That's what I think happened. I think that they do have something, right? I think what's his name's story?
Bob Lazar.
Yeah, I think Lazar's story is mostly right. I think he exaggerated it.
I don't know. Right? He doesn't seem like the type to go ahead and blow shit up.
I mean, it was just that over the years, I feel like it expanded because he was like just telling a better story. But I think
You
like,
saw him when he was on Rogan, though, right?
Yeah, I think that's the vibe I got when he was on Rogan too. I think that the most of it is true, like the essence of it is true, and I think he just kind of added details that made the story better.
Well, I think I remember when he was on the History Channel some years back, right? And they were talking about his whole thing, you know, the story, and they asked him at one point in the interview that they aired was, okay, what did they show you pictures of? And then he was like, dead aliens, like just kind of matter of factly.
Exactly, that shit he added.
Right, and then he went back on the Rogan podcast, and then he said that it might have just been some kind of test dummy or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you don't say. You don't go and change like that, because when he was saying in the documentary that I saw before, where he was looking at autopsy photos and shit like that, like creepy ass crap like that.
That's what I'm saying. I think he expanded it, you know, in the intermeeting years.
But see what the theory about him was from the skeptics that I had saw in that documentary was that he's a government plant.
I don't think that.
Well, what the theory was that he was supposed to go out there and distract people with the UFO story to kind of disguise the actual shit that we work on behind the scenes in that facility. Because remember,
those UFOs are real. But I mean, those things we saw are real.
Right, but I mean, for the longest time though, they didn't even acknowledge that such an area like Area 51 existed. And you know, remember there was that time period where everybody would go on Google Maps and be like, "Hey, look, Area 51."
Yeah.
And it got to a point where they were like, "Okay, yeah, Area S4 and Area 51 is an actual place."
Yeah.
You know, and still, whatever, all that money that we throw into the military has to go toward advancing our technology and all that kind of stuff. But I think basically I'm saying I think it's more plausible that we found alien tech and reverse engineered it. I mean, if you can't, but again, like the way us coming up with it our own. Because that stuff, like that Tic Tac, that looks to be like some sort of like anti-gravity technology. Well, that's what they thought. I mean, we don't know what anti-gravity technology would really look like.
But it's not like I'm saying that's not like a propulsion thing. They're using like the Earth's magnetic field or something to power the craft. Like, well, that's what
they kept talking about. There was that element, some number. Right.
Well, I'm just saying, like from the videos, like if you watch those videos and reverse engineer it, or like work backwards from it.
Let's talk about Assange, and then we'll look at that Tic Tac video just to because I know
there's no engine exhaust,
dude. All right,
there's no engine exhaust or anything.
All right, let's go to Julie. Let's talk about Julian Assange because we put that in the description. We keep bearing the lead, so. Here we go. So this is the latest Julian Assange news. So Julian Assange is in a prison block that's locked down now after a COVID outbreak. 3 inmates understood to have tested positive in Belmarsh in southeast London. The prison block in which Julian Assange is being detained under extradition proceedings has been locked down following an outbreak of coronavirus. So it's 3 prisoners that have tested positive, and the number of coronavirus cases within the prison estate increased significantly last month, with positive results at 45 jails across England and Wales, including 10 prisons that have never reported outbreaks. Assange, public relations agency, issued a release confirming that the prison governor at Belmarsh has written to inmates in House Block 1 to inform them of the outbreak. So within the block, all exercise has been stopped. Showers prohibited, and meals are to be provided direct to prisoners' cells. Assange, he's 49. He's 49. He must live a stressful life. But was jailed in April last year for absconding bail. He was later told that he would not be released at the end of the custody period and would remain in jail while he awaits a second extradition proceedings to the U.S., where he is wanted on an 18-count indictment. All but one are for violations of the country's Espionage Act. Yeah, I mean, this is what David brought up over here is that they're trying to go ahead. They're going to use this to try and take Assange out.
I think they would. Like that. They'd be happy if that happened.
Yeah. What do you?
Put the article back on?
Yeah, let me go back to it and see. Yeah, every day that passes a serious risk to Julian. Belmarsh is an extremely dangerous environment where murders and suicides are commonplace. Julian,
that's all they're gonna say about his charges, though.
Yeah.
There's nothing else down there about like how it's bullshit.
Oh, come on, bro! It's from the Guardian. Do you think they're gonna do that?
I mean, they just implied that. I mean, they didn't even go into detail about what the charges were for.
Right.
Usually they say, charges related to.
Yeah, they just say that he's charged under the Espionage Act.
Because that's what I mean. The charge is so tenuous. There's no charge there, right? The charge is supposedly claims that he assisted in the hacking.
Right. I mean, that's so stupid.
It's just not something he's ever done in his career, right? And they need that, right? That has to, because there's nothing in there to charge. You can't charge WikiLeaks for publishing.
No,
that's not against the law, right? There's no legal basis to charge them with that. So they have to have this hacking charge stick. I don't know. I think the judge might let him off. I mean, I don't think I think they might want to they don't want to be the ones who make the call.
Right.
I heard the judge was total super fash, right? Everything I heard about her was she was just they locked him in that box and put him in the back away from his lawyer, and he couldn't even talk during his own trial.
Right.
And she ruled out a bunch of evidence that could have been important, different stuff like that. She was really strict on, but I just I feel like they don't want to be the ones to make that international ruling. They don't want to change the law like that, because that doesn't happen. They don't extradite to America from the UK, right? That's not, they have a treaty. They have a 100-year-old treaty that this is totally against, right? This would be huge, and I feel like they might not want to take the responsibility of changing that, right? They would rely on,
right.
They'd probably have make the U.S. arrest them themselves, right? They don't want to be the ones who were.
Well, how long was he in that embassy for?
I think 18 months,
Jesus,
right?
Man, it's fucking crazy. Think about that. I mean, the whole reason for his arrest is entirely political.
Well, he couldn't leave is the problem, and he got sick, and he couldn't leave the embassy to get medical treatment, so he got sicker.
Right.
That's the inhumane part. They should have let him go to the hospital. Right?
Okay, but I mean, the whole reason for going after him is bullshit on its face. And
yeah, no, there's no case at all.
Right. So I mean, at this point, I mean, it would be a good move for Trump to go ahead and pardon him. I doubt Biden would pardon him.
No,
I don't see a pardon coming for Snowden under Biden either.
Yeah, I think.
And what did they do? I mean,
I think he might do it though.
Who, Trump?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
I think Greenwald's been making pull up Greenwald's tweets. He's been making the case this morning. I saw he had a thread about why Trump should do it. I mean, he's been talking about it a lot. He went on Tucker last week, and he talks about it every time you hear him, on another show. He does a lot of podcasts and stuff. So I hear him.
Okay, so let's go to, let's see. I found this one. So a very important exchange was this from when he was on with the Nina Turner. Or when Tulsi Gabbard was on with Nina Turner. But here we go. A Trump pardon of Snowden and Assange would be historic on so many levels. It would cause civil liberties groups, press freedom groups, and leaders from all around the world to praise him. He'd be the first president willing to confront the deep state since Eisenhower's farewell address. People across the spectrum, right, left, and in between, would cheer. The only people furious about those abusive powers they revealed: John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey. What is it? Susan Rice, Susan Rice, and then who's this one? Michael Hayden. General Michael Hayden. Dem should start pressuring Biden for a pardon of reality winner. Good luck with that. But Assange will die in prison, and Snowden will spend the rest of his life in exile for patriotic acts exposing the grave deep state crimes if Trump does not use the power given to him. It's hard to put into words what heroes Snowden and Assange are considered around the world. In Brazil, both Lula and Dilma, right, have repeatedly heaped praise on them, urging a pardon. And in the U.S., outside the deep state operatives, their media organs, they're viewed the same way. There you go. One of the most revealing Trump-era moments is when Chuck Schumer went on Rachel Maddow and warned Trump, "Don't criticize or confront the CIA, or they'll destroy you." He was right. They did. They're who is demanding Snowden and Assange stay persecuted. You want to watch this clip?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go.
The latest statement, latest tweet, as you were just saying, the President-elect's latest unsolicited pronouncement on the intelligence community. This was his tweet just a little while ago tonight. You see the scare quotes there. The intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange. We're actually told, intelligence sources tell NBC News since this tweet has been posted, that actually this intelligence briefing for the president-elect was always planned for Friday. It hasn't been delayed. But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I'm told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked.
The latest statement.
I think he's 100% right, man.
Yeah. No.
Right? That's
so fucking brazen though, man. I mean, what the hell? Really?
I think he didn't realize it. I think he thought he was being nice, or thought he was being courteous or something. Like, I think he genuinely thought he was offering advice to Trump, right? Like,
you think so?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think, dude, Schumer's been in the game for how long? Like, he knows how those guys operate. Like, he's probably seen it to other people. He's probably seen it happen, right? Like, they're like, that's where the power is, right? Like, the deep state, that's the deep state, right? Like, the intelligence community, like, that's who runs our foreign policy. That's who sets the agenda. That's who coordinates with capital. Like, that's the people who, like, the CIA was like started by Wall Street lawyers, like, that's who it's always been, right? It's like people like that, people who are just like on the, like, in those buildings, like, meeting with those people.
Hey, by the way, what do you call Glenn Greenwald when he's sad?
That was the corniest thing ever. Like, I can't
Glenn
believe he did
Blue.
that. I think
yeah, I thought that was a decent reaction.
No, my God, it was so corny. I can't believe you did that.
Wait, I got another window for you. So here we go. Who's the only lefty YouTuber that can tell the future?
I don't know. Crystal ball.
There you go.
It's like not that funny.
Come on. No, come on. What does the chat think? Come on. Puns good or bad?
No puns.
All right.
I love Kyle.
Yeah.
He does need to work on his tweets sometimes, though. Like,
well, look,
I
when
was
he's
looking
going,
at the replies.
When he's going after somebody,
I was looking back. Like, I searched one time. I wanted to see his conversations with Felix from,
Here we go. From the chat, ban Kyle from Twitter.
Yeah, I was just reading back on through, like, their entire his communications with Felix, and it was like he had some funny replies, but he had a lot of, like, like Jennifer Rubin-esque, like, thirsty replies, where he just, like, says, like, shit, and then Felix doesn't respond to them. Like, yeah, I'd say most of them he never responded to.
Right.
Just like through the years, right? Like this, going back several years now. Like,
so
really funny.
Well, like since we're on the whole Trump gone his way out thing, I wanted to get your take on the court cases again. So let's just go to a current update of the situation. So Trump and the GOP started the day 2-33 in court, and today they're 2-34 in court. So that's one. And let's see. So here we go. In a total loss for the Trump campaign in its most major remaining election case, the federal court in Pennsylvania dismissed the case and denies a motion to file amended complaint. So I think I had that tweet lined up, right? Here we go. No, that's not it. That's the FOIA request. Where is the... Because the judge released the opinion, right? There we go. Got it. So, I'll just read it. In other words, plaintiff asked this court to disenfranchise almost 7 million voters. This court has been unable to find any case in which a plaintiff has sought such a drastic remedy in the contest of an election in terms of the sheer volume of votes asked to be invalidated. One might expect when seeking such a startling outcome, a plaintiff would come formidably armed with compelling legal arguments and factual proof of rampant corruption, such that this court would have no option but to regrettably grant the proposed injunctive relief, despite the impact it would have on such a large group of citizens. That has not happened. Instead, this court has been presented with strained legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations, unpled in the operative complaint and unsupported by evidence. In the United States of America, this cannot justify the disenfranchisement of a single voter, let alone all the votes of its sixth most populated state. Our people, laws, and institutions demand more. At bottom, plaintiffs have failed to meet their burden to state a claim upon which relief may be granted. Therefore, I grant defendants' motions and dismiss this plaintiff's action with prejudice. So it was with prejudice.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. Good.
Damn. Well, that was one of the more entertaining opinions that you'll read. Well, yeah. So the defendant's motion right away was a motion to dismiss based on failure to state a claim, like we were talking about. We didn't actually get to read the briefing and everything, but you can tell by the opinion. So the only so just go down the thread a little bit more to get more on what was going on in this case. So from the judge on the merits, plaintiff's only remaining claim alleges a violation of equal protection. This claim, like Frankenstein's monster, has been haphazardly stitched together from two distinct theories in an attempt to avoid controlling precedent. This ruling can be appealed, but I expect an appeal will get zero traction, and there are no remaining serious lawsuits that could affect the outcome in PA. None. There are some that involve a small number of ballots, including one stuck at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So where does this leave Trump in terms of lawsuits? There's one still pending in Nevada that will fail. There's one pending before the Supreme Court that involves a few ballots. Nothing else significant. For all those GOP senators waiting for Trump to produce evidence, there's nothing left.
There's nothing. They need to.
I don't know why they threw this one in, but yeah, I guess the judge's order dismissing the lawsuit and denying leave to amend is how the judge signs his name to the order.
I mean, Bernie's been talking about it, like he's been calling them out, but they're just so bad at everything. Like they are letting themselves just be like totally cucked, right? Like they are just letting them.
Well, we kind of speculated that was going to end up being the outcome. We didn't think it was going to be that awesome.
Beyond pathetic. It's beyond pathetic for a sitting president to try to subvert the results of an election. It's even worse when the Republican Party, with few exceptions, remains silent on this outrageous attack on democracy. The GOP has ceased to be a political party. It is now a cult. Like, that's the kind of thing that Biden needs to say. It's like they need to stop. Their whole thing is like you said about the platform committee, man. Everything is about not pissing off the Republicans. It's about like not poking the bear, not getting any kind of backlash. Like and as a result, they just have like the most inoffensive milquetoast everything, messaging on everything, and it doesn't appeal to anybody, and then it's ineffective. They get nothing done because they're not strong on anything. There's nothing that they are like passionate about, right? It's just like another example of the same problem with them. It's like their desire to like serve their donors first and foremost, their desire to like serve capitalism has made it so that they are such an ineffective political party because they're not standing up. They have no core issues that they have to protect. They have no core like identity, like issue set that they're dedicated to strengthening or reforming or whatever.
I mean, do you think at any part of him actually thought he was gonna win any of these things? I mean, 2-30. It was the Trump. I mean, look at that. I mean, that record was ridiculous. Yeah, like they were gonna just rubber stamp because I mean they brought this up before. I forgot who brought it up in the chat. Like, what if they have a judge that's just gonna rubber stamp everything? Look, if they can't even state a claim that could get them past a dismissal motion, they're pretty.
That's what they thought. They thought they would have a judge who would be whatever they wanted.
Yeah, but I mean, look, they don't even have a case enough to get past a motion to dismiss.
Yeah, they thought they would have somebody who would be that, that much of a sycophant. Right? Like,
but I mean, and I don't doubt that there's Republican judges that are more inclined to give them leeway if they had an actual claim to state, but they don't. They don't even have like a bare minimum to rubber stamp.
They're trying to do weren't they trying to throw out all the votes in Pennsylvania with that one?
Yeah, that was the one that they're trying to invalidate all 7 million votes.
Yeah, I think they I don't know what would they have done though? What could they have done? They had to invalidate like they had to call the whole process wrong. Like they had to say that every single of course it's a joke, but what else were they going to do? They had to try, right?
Right. I mean, okay. So legally,
what else did we talk about? I was trying to make a list this time. We started off talking about the Latinx voters.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start calling them Latinx now, just to bug you.
Okay. Well, that's the game that you want to play.
And then we started talking about El Paso.
Yeah.
Right. And then we talked about the coronavirus relief. And then what?
Well,
what are we talking about now?
We can go through. We could through.
I forgot what we were talking about.
We could go through it after.
Biden's funding.
Yeah, Biden's funding. Right. Did you catch that thing that Ring of Fire posted? The Governor Whitmer, the story.
What? That it was an FBI setup?
For the kidnapping.
No, I didn't see.
Okay, let me go to that. So Ring of Fire posted this up. The kidnapping plot against Governor Whitmer was way more disturbing than you thought. So according to documents filed in court this week, the plot to kidnap Democratic Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer was far more disturbing than previously reported, and the men who were plotting were hoping to get other government officials too, and they were going to stage a televised execution. These are the people that Trump and the Republicans are embracing, as Ring of Fire's Fern Cousins explains. I should just play the video.
Let's watch the clip.
Yeah, let's just play the clip from Ring of Fire.
The plot to kidnap and publicly execute Michigan's Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer has not received the media attention that it deserves. And this week, as 6 individuals charged are headed to federal court and 8 are headed to state court, we're finding out a lot more details about how gruesome this plot truly was, how extensive these plans were, and just how incompetent our media is here in the United States, because we're not hearing about this story. This happens to be from The Independent over in the UK. Because they're not afraid to talk about it. They're not afraid to explain how crazy people in the United States have become thanks to Donald Trump. So here's what we learned this week, according to new court filings. New filings show another plan the militiamen had drawn up involved a takeover of the Michigan Capitol by 200 combatants. The Capitol building by 200 combatants.
They were going to get 200 people to go ahead and do
These
this?
members would then allegedly stage a week-long series of televised executions of public officials, according to the government's documents.
Jesus.
Elements of another plan involved burning down the State House while the legislature was in session and locking every door, therefore leaving no survivors.
Oh,
like in Inglourious
That is what
Bastards,
these 14 individuals who thought they could grow their numbers to 200 individuals
that was
wanted
the plan
to do. Why? Because they didn't want to wear a mask.
The damn liberals.
Let's never forget.
Ain't gonna make me wear a mask.
That is where this came from.
Goddamn liberals.
These pansy-ass, snowflake, idiotic, right-wing militia Republicans were so terrified of the thought of having to wear a face covering during a deadly pandemic that they were willing to just murder the entire government of Michigan.
Jesus, dude.
I don't think that means they're snowflakes.
These people are insane.
Well, the snowflakes because
And
they didn't want to wear a
I'm not
mask.
saying that, you know, hyperbolically. I mean, genuinely, these individuals are insane. They need to be locked away forever. And not in prison, but in mental health facilities.
Oh, there you go. You like that one, Matt?
Help. They don't need, you know, hard labor or you know, rehabilitation. They need psychiatric help. If your response to somebody saying, hey, can you cover your face and not let germs out because we're in the middle of a deadly global pandemic? If your response to that is, I'm going to go kill 200 people now, then guess what? You're crazy.
Dude,
there's no other way to say that, folks. We have to call a spade a spade. And that is what this is. These individuals, you do feel a bit of sympathy for them because you do understand they are mentally ill.
Oh.
And we here in the United States do a horrible job of taking care of mentally ill individuals. At everything. We just send them off to prison. Prison will do nothing for these people.
Okay.
They need help.
Oh, they do?
And that's another tragedy here is they'll never get it. They'll never get that help.
Mm.
And they'll go and they'll serve their time and yada, 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 and then eventually they'll be released again, and who knows what will happen at that point. Maybe they will have had some counseling sessions while in prison. Maybe that's enough to work out some of their demons, but it certainly isn't going to be enough to treat all of them. And so what they'll do is they'll probably medicate them. You know, you get some pills. Don't ever forget to take your pills because then you could end up doing bad things.
All right. We got it. Well, you're pretty when it comes to prison abolition. I mean, you have a pretty strong stance on that kind of stuff. I mean, do you come down the same way as far as with these guys needing mental help as opposed to prison time?
I don't know. I mean, they. I don't know. Like I don't know. I'd have to, I'd have to evaluate them, right? Like these guys haven't really been on TV or anything, right? Like,
yeah,
I haven't gotten any.
I mean, on its
kind of
face,
feel for them.
Because the premise that he's laying out there is, if you're gonna go ahead and try to do a plot like this because of a face covering, that by definition makes you mentally ill.
I just don't know how serious about it they were. Like, I don't know if they were just, mostly just like a bunch of guys sitting around complaining about the government and shooting guns.
Well, I mean, they were training and setting up plans, and it got to a point where at least that they have to get arrested and to prevent their plans from moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, could have just been like a hobby. They LARPed on the weekends. I don't know if it was.
All right, but I don't know. I mean, but come on. At that point when they were actually arrested because they thought that the plan was that serious, and that's the premise of the plan, right? That's the premise of the plan is because of the masks.
Like, I think they were arrested because, like, I don't know how close they were to execution. I think they were arrested because there was 2 of the 14 guys were FBI agents, right? Or like one was FBI and the other one was ATF, right? Like, that's why they were arrested. It wasn't because they were close to executing getting their plan underway.
Oh, we got raided. Oh, did we get raided? Hello, everybody. What? No. But so okay, so to back up, so you're saying that they didn't really get arrested because of the actual plan. They got arrested because what? Just because what? 2 of the guys were FBI.
I mean, I don't know if that's why they pulled the trigger on arresting them. Well, they were. I mean, does it say anything like that? I think that they were going to arrest them anyway, right? That's why they had all those agents in there. What's up? Where are you guys raiding from? I can't see it. I'm looking at the restream thing. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. But no.
We were talking about our Michigan militia guys.
Yeah.
I want to take it easy on them, and Tony wants to lock them up and throw away the key.
Well, that's what I was asking about, bro. I was asking you, like, I mean, okay, so where do you come down based on what their situation is? I mean, do you think that they're actually mentally ill and deserve and need mental help, or is it a prison situation? Oh, there you go. So they came over from Daco BBZ. We're not sure what that channel. We appreciate that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
What is the punishment for? See, militias are protected under the Constitution, but but I mean, for arresting, trying to kidnap a sitting governor and then setting up a plot to kill 200 members of the government is probably not covered under protections.
Yeah, I know, that's what I mean. Like, I don't know if they were actually going to do it, right? Because I think a lot of guys sit around. Like I said, I think that's probably a pretty mainstream type, like, LARP or at least something to sit around talking about, right? I feel like there's probably a lot of guys like that around the country. That's why I don't know, like, how you would even go about trying to rehabilitate them. Do they? They would. I mean, I don't think that they would, though. They would have to lock up so many of these guys, like, because I feel like that might be something that Biden does, right? That might be something he prioritizes, like combating, like this, the radical, like, basically the stuff that Trump has been avoiding doing his whole term, right? The stuff that the FBI keeps saying we need to devote more resources to the white supremacy groups, and they keep avoiding it. Like, he might make that one of his things because it's like one of those things he can do without really challenging capital, right? Like, he can go after those guys without, like, costing any money to Wall Street in any way, right? Like, he could make that one of his priorities, and it would also, it'd be perfect for, like, the liberals, like, culture war fantasy, right? Like, they would love to see that shit. And, like, they'll probably do, like, what they were doing with, like, the Muslim groups, right? Like, they were putting, like, an FBI agent at every, like, mosque trying to be like, hey, you guys know where I can get some, some fertilizer? Like, you guys, you know where I can get some nitroglycerin? Just trying to constantly set them up, right? Like,
so you go, a legitimate militia will recognize Biden as commander-in-chief if he is proven the winner. Well, I mean, at this point,
I don't think they are legitimate militias.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I think that they're scumbag, like, LARPing psychos. Like, I don't.
Well, okay,
I don't think.
So I mean, look, apparently
like
it was
Bundy. Like, that's a real militia guy. Like, those guys will recognize Biden. Like, they don't fuck around, but, like, these guys in Michigan, I feel like they're just
LARPing,
a bunch of psycho blowhards. Yeah.
Well, okay, so look at apparently it was like a plan A, plan B, plan C situation. So the 14 men that were arrested, they had a plan B that involved the takeover of the Michigan Capitol by 200 combatants. So they were going to go ahead and blow up their numbers from 14 and 200, and then Plan C was to take down the state house and with its legislators locked inside, leaving no survivors. So it was like what you talked about, Matt, was an inglorious bastard situation. And they were also attempting, allegedly planning to kidnap Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, and then Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Pritzker. Oh, yeah, dude, I love Pritzker.
Yeah. It says he told reporters this week that he gets threats daily. Still, some of the men arrested have gotten bond reductions and are now. Oh Jesus. We just talked about Kyle Rittenhouse getting out yesterday on $2 million bail, and then these guys got let out too. Or at least a couple of them got let out.
I know, but what are you going to keep them in jail for, though? Like, they're, are they going to go home and start plotting a new like...
Well, I don't think it's that crazy. They had already had to hatch the plan to do this shit. I mean, what do you think they're going to go back and just... are they precluded from going ahead and associating with one another, or going ahead and recruiting?
No, but they'll probably have surveillance, like nonstop now, right? Like they'll, I mean, they're gonna have these guys. Like I don't think they have the funding to go look at that. Like if you look at like the stuff that like Klippenstein's been putting out,
right?
Like, they've been, basically like weaponized politically as much as possible, all the different like intelligence groups. So like the extent that they have anybody on these guys at all, it's a lot. Like it's fucked up that like the FBI is like the liberal intelligence agency now, because then you have like the ICE and the like DHS guys who are just hardcore radicals. So like they might be looking into it, but I don't know. I'm not like I said, this might be something they do, but I don't know. I think, it's the until you deal with the conditions that cause them to feel like that, right? Like that comes back to the same issue. Like the way to de-radicalize these guys is not to have, is not to go on TV and say, "Come on, man," a lot. Like that's not going to. They're not going to see you as like reasonable guy, right? That's like years of like programming has been hammered into their brain that like their worldview is just completely different than like the, whatever passes for like objective reality, right? Yeah. They think that like, like I said before, like they think that like the. I mean, they think that like the socialists have already won,
right? But this is also about the mass thing. I mean, there has to be more guys like this out there that are probably planning something like this because Trump lost, right? I mean, you'd think by now that they're not like a unique case, because you talked about like they're middle of the road Republicans, is what you said, right?
Yeah, I think this is pretty standard. Like I think. Plotting to kidnap the governor, I think, is not an uncommon type fantasy. I think that's the kind of, if you look at like.
Great. Listen, Fat, you need to knock off this LARP and rub my hair.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's not going to work. They need to actually do good stuff. They need to actually prove that they're, that they have they want to help the working class, right? They have to like prove that they give a damn about anybody that's not like coastal elites, right? That's the kind of thing they can do to like prove the Republicans wrong. But like if they keep trying to means test and micro target and support.
Look, I don't think any of that shit helps when you still got Trump out there insisting that this shit was stolen or something was wrong or some bullshit happened or I'm gonna still be the president. I actually won the election. He was at a G20 summit, right? Yeah, the G20 leaders. And this is what he told the leaders over there, right here. I look forward to working with you again for a long time. This is what he's doing. He's going to talking to other world leaders and saying that, yeah, I'm still gonna be here. Yeah, I'm carrying on. I'm carrying on from you. We're not gonna go ahead and I'm not leaving office. Don't worry. I actually won this.
It kind of looked pathetic when he was doing it in America.
Yeah.
Like when Pompeo was saying it.
Right.
That kind of looked pathetic, but it actually, I'm like not gonna lie, it was kind of based when he does it to the foreign leaders. Like,
what did they even?
They're not going anywhere, folks.
Oh Jesus!
I'll be back, folks. going to be Trumplandia. You love it, folks. It's going to be very strong.
All right, but we're gonna end up wrapping up soon about this right now. We hate to do it when we just got
and
rated.
It's never gonna go away either.
Yeah,
right? Like they're not gonna stop. It's going to last. It's going to be like Russiagate. It's going to go on all 4 years until there's another election. It's going to be the Democrats stole the election.
Right.
Don't listen to anything Joe Biden has to say, and like.
Yeah,
it's sad too because like we were saying earlier,
or did you see that shit that he tweeted out earlier? Right, the what was it, that shit that he was talking about with the swine flu or whatever other bullshit it was in that tweet.
Yeah, it was like he was still. Like he's still running, right? But like that's the kind of stuff he's going to do. He's just going to sit on the sidelines and say this election was stolen.
Right.
Joe Biden sucks. Like he's doing a shitty job.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I would anticipate him transitioning over. But this sounds like a legit. This could have been released in October or September. Joe Biden was a total disaster in handling the H1N1 swine flu. Would have never produced a vaccine in record time, years ahead of schedule, and would do a terrible job of vaccine delivery. But doesn't everybody already know that? Yeah. So I mean, come on.
I think he might do. I don't know. I think he might do some cool shit in the lame duck. Like if that pharma company thing was any indication, so far since he's lost, he's done the defense, right? Like fired everybody at the Pentagon, pulled the troops out of the Middle East, and then signed this deal with the pharma companies.
He's firing people that don't want to go and buy into the notion that he still has a chance of even being president come next year. That's what he's doing. He's just reacting out to people that aren't agreeing with his bullshit right now.
Okay, but he can't. I mean, I don't really care because that's not like that's secondary. Like if they're changing laws now, like if they're pulling the troops out, like it's good. They're gonna at least have to like put them back in, which will be a long process, and it'll look like shit, and they won't. They won't want to do that. They won't want to expend political capital on it right away, and then they have to rehire their own bureaucrats anyway. Which again, it's just a matter of how long it takes them. And the pharma thing is legit, right? Like they're gonna have to sue to get rid of that.
The pharma thing is a pretty legit policy, but okay. So getting warmongers out of power is a good thing, regardless of their political affiliation. And that's agreed.
I'm looking forward to seeing what else he does. That's why I think he might pardon Assange too.
Oh, he's not gonna pardon Assange.
I think he might, man. I really do. Or at least Snowden.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would be nice if he went ahead and pardoned Assange or Snowden. He's not gonna do it, bro.
I know Biden likes war. Yeah, right. Like Biden's going to.
And so,
put warmongers back in, but it'll take them a while to do it.
Right. So, what does that amount to for the next couple of months? When it comes down to,
well,
you're gonna
get the troops home. Good for the troops.
Dude, he got. I mean, that was even like a fake ass withdrawal, and then on top of that, he went ahead and put people at what he sent Pompeo to Israel in violation of international law. So. And
that's different.
And this is the thing. When it came to what we're talking about with the warmongers, guess who had to talk him out of bombing Iran? Right after the election went south on him, it was those same fucking warmongers. Now that's the situation that you're in with this dude in office, where his immediate gut reaction to losing was going ahead and bombing Iran, and he had to get talked out of it by the fucking warmongers that we know are objectively terrible. They were the voice of reason
now. Yeah, yeah, he's doing his bucket list, right? Like, I don't know what he'll do. Like, I don't know if he'll do anything that'll help regular people, but like he likes to own the libs.
There we go. This is a good point. Trump should pass N4A just to own the libs. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he'll do that, but I think he might do another like half measure type. Like he might, I think extend Medicaid to everybody or something for the year or something like that.
You know what? I think it's more likely that he does a nuclear test.
Yeah. I think that's pretty plausible too. I think that's less likely.
Yeah, watch, he's gonna be like, you know what, folks, I only have access to the nuclear football for a couple more months, so I'm just gonna go ahead and set off an atomic bomb for the first time.
Yeah. I just don't know why he didn't run on those things.
Right.
Like if he had made pulling the troops out, if he had made pulling the troops out, getting that pharma deal done, and What else? What was the other thing he did?
Trump is already more progressive than the last 4 administrations combined.
That's what I'm saying. If he had just run on doing those things,
if he would have
had a.
he would have done all the shit that he ran on.
Yeah. If he had just run on those things, those 3 things, pardoning Assange,
this
doing
is true.
the pharma deal, and pulling the troops out, like I might have voted for him.
There you go. They want to do war in the most profitable way for our military-industrial complex jobs program. There you go.
I think they want to privatize it, right? They want to send over Eric Prince. They want to send over.
Yes, this is exactly true. He ran on it the first time. He was just full of shit. I mean, look, he talked about the big one, one of the main ones that he kept rallying about against Hillary was NAFTA. And what did he do?
Yeah.
What did he?
That's new NAFTA.
Yeah, he just gave us a new NAFTA, rebranded the motherfucker, and then he did a couple of
but he
alterations
did
to it. But he kept the
saying.
majority of NAFTA intact.
The voters think that he did something good for them, right?
Yeah,
they think that that's what that was. They think that he.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly
he was doing a good thing.
NAFTA light.
Yeah, and you and I know that, but like I said before, it's not about what. It's about the messaging. It's about what they can convince people of, because they did a really shitty job convincing people that the new NAFTA was not good, right? So
yeah, I mean that's true. But on the other hand, you still had to deal with the ramifications from shit like that when you still had jobs getting outsourced under the New Deal, right? So
no, he outsourced more jobs than Obama. He outsourced his tax plan 100%.
And what did he keep saying? He was going to stop the outsourcing.
Yeah, it incentivized it, but it doesn't matter though. Like I said, they're not reporting. Tucker Carlson's not talking about all the jobs Trump is outsourcing, right? He's talking about how great the new NAFTA is, and how about they're going to give your kids abortions or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's about what their messaging can accomplish, and if they can't message effectively that the Republicans are demons, they're fucked, right? Like I said about the coronavirus relief plan, it's like it's batshit crazy that the Republicans are not offering anything, and then the Democrats just go on TV and they're like, "Yeah, I'm sure we'll come around to some agreement." They just kind of act like it's completely sane and rational for them to not want to spend that money, and then they
right. See, and this is true too. Dems just have to put the blame on Trumpism in 10 years. Hopefully, we still have a planet. But I mean, it's true. What they will do in the next administration, because there's going to be so much shit still to deal with, and they're not going to do anything meaningful because more than likely they're going to be dealing with an obstructionist Senate with McConnell. Is they're just going to go ahead and blame everything on the last administration, despite everything falling apart. So I mean, what you're talking
about the transition team,
right? So what you're talking about, Matt, before too, with in order to get a progressive to have a chance in the next presidential election, things have to go historically bad, which isn't really out of the realm of possibility, given how things are going to go ahead and be set up.
Yeah, no, they're going to have a shitty time, and they're going to have to blame it on something. But I don't think that's going to work.
Trumpism is such an ugly word. The plebes recently made it up. We used to call it being red pill.
I mean, not red pill. Oh yeah, I guess that is red pill. Yeah, they're gonna have to do something though. I keep saying, right? Like, they can't. Like, that's not gonna work again to just blame the Republicans and say, oh, like they wouldn't let us do anything. Like, that's not gonna cut it when there's going to be such suffering, right? Like, this is worse than 2008. People are in worse trouble, and the bill hasn't come due yet.
Yeah.
And, they're going to have to deal with that, and they're going to have a very hard time with the Republicans, stopping everything up and them not being able to effectively explain to the voters what's going on.
Right.
Because people, like I said, people think it's just the two sides have a reasonable plan that they're trying to come together on. Right, they're gonna say they ran this whole campaign on reaching across the aisle and how the Republicans are actually decent. It's just Trump that sucks. The whole thing was about how we're so reasonable and we can come together and figure it out. and then they're not going to be able to figure it out, right? And it's just going to be they want to give money to like gay opera singers and like trans abortion clinics or whatever they say, right? Like, and they're going to totally not have any way, like they're not going to have any like explanation, right? They're just going to be like standing there like pointing their finger,
right? Not
any kind of deeper perspective on it.
So this is funny. We would have flying cars and AI by now if Obama was what he was billed as.
Like he didn't even have to be that progressive. He just had to be like, if he had done like 3 decent things, like instead of just taking everybody's house and like paying the banks to do it, like if he had just like forgiven the debt or given the people the money to turn around and pay the banks, like buying the people out of it instead of just buying the banks out. Like there's like a couple minor things he could have done where it would have helped out the country so much, and it would have fucked the banks just a teeny little bit.
Oh, but speaking of AI and shit, did you see
that would have even like?
Did you see this shit that I posted? I think I retweeted or I just replied to it, but this was freaking creepy. So this robot has artificial skin that can allegedly feel something akin to pain. Look at this thing. Let's see. Hold up. Come on, play. If you go.
Yeah, he was Bush-like. And he normalized Bush's policies, which is exactly what Biden's going to do to Trump's policies. Like Biden's going to come in and then use where Trump left off as like a starting point, right? And then if he fixes anything, he's going to have to expend political capital to do it. So
look how they did the structure on this thing. It has like a full ass fucking skeletal system.
No, well, that's.
Oh, don't tell me that shit.
See, they're trying to get so that they can have robot servants in the, in the climate dystopia.
Like they want it to be able to process pain.
Yeah, so they can whip their servants.
It's programmed to wince.
Yeah.
Look, they're gonna do it when electric charge is applied to the skin.
Yeah, I mean, you can have sensors that are that sensitive. It doesn't seem like it's that hard.
All inanimate objects have a soul, so a metal robot is no different from a human in that respect. Wow.
Yeah.
You like sci-fi stuff. Where do you sit on the AI shit?
Well, I can see what happens. Like when we have AIs, it's going to be, like the Americans and the Western capital will want to be slaves or whatever, and the Japanese are going to have to like lead the global fight for like AI civil rights.
Oh, yeah.
Totally how it's going to shape up, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if they have that much of a stance when it comes to AI, I mean,
I think I agree with Japan. I think.
Well, if you create, I mean,
it has to be sufficiently advanced.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like what you talk about, where you endow something with sentience, right? I mean, at what point you have to kind of acknowledge that it has a certain level of autonomy, even if it's artificially created.
Yeah, like something like the what's it called test? The the code breaker. What's his name? They made the movie about him last year. What the hell is his name?
Which one?
Benedict Cumberbatch played him. The gay World War II codebreaker.
Can't remember. Yeah, I remember Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah. Okay. What was that? What was that movie?
Yeah, Cumberbatch played him. Oh man.
Let me look it up really fast. Cumberbatch. Let's see.
They were British. Bletchley Park was where they worked.
You're talking about it was a World War II movie? The Imitation Game?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name?
World War II Imitation Game. It was
Turing. That's it. Yeah, Turing test.
Yeah, Alan Turing. Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be as smart as a human, but I feel like there would be.
Well,
I feel like it wouldn't. I feel like they're pretty close already. Like they're like.
Well, like the question for
convincing.
me, like the question for me would be, at what point or another do you get to a point where things are advanced enough where there is interchangeability? So like they create like realistic skin on this robot, right? At what point can you use that technology to create something like a skin graft for people that need it?
I think that's going to 3D print organs very soon. That's one of the things in that World Economic Forum. So I can find that video.
I think that would be conceivably a good thing, but it kind of goes into this thing about kind of integrating organic life with artificial life. Yes, exactly. So this is kind of this is my own personal theory about this. Is like the next stage of human evolution is going to be involved integrating humanity with AI.
Like cyborgs.
Yes, essentially like cyborgs. Like, okay, think about it like this. So we have phones that have access to unlimited amounts of data and communications capabilities. I mean, at one point or another, you assume that technology is going to be advanced enough to go ahead and integrate something like your phone into your person.
Yeah, that's like Neuralink.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
See,
I'm excited for that.
I mean, could you imagine like that? You have a built-in phone into your
I want to be
system.
able to look at Wikipedia stuff like in my head.
Yeah, and you could go ahead and process all of that internally, and then maybe have a mechanism to project it out if you want to go ahead and share it with somebody outside of your own space, your mental space. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll have that. Like, I think it's more likely that you'll have. I sent you something.
Right.
That you'll have
exactly. See, so you're already connected to your phone and it never leaves your side. So what's the difference if it's in your body? I mean, there is.
I think people won't want to be hacked, though.
Yeah, I mean, because conceivably at that point, if you have the technology integrated into your brain, maybe a person is actually hackable. And what are they capable of at that point?
Like, I'd rather have something that would be, like, I plugged it in once a day and like updated it. So I could like look up stuff, but I don't know if I want to have like my Twitter feed in my head, like.
Yeah, you can imagine. Like I think there's a little bit more of a utility in that where you can mentally project your whole Twitter feed inside your head, and then if you want to, you can go ahead and portray it out or figure out a way to mentally retweet or you're constantly communicating. With
they have done that. Like they've done like rudimentary like brain link ups, right? Yep. Where you can like control stuff. With your brain. Like, it wasn't very complicated. It was very it was very simple, but they were able to like use their thoughts to control devices.
So here we go. Genetics, robotics, information, and nanotech pushing humans so far from biologics that we become a new species. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I mean. Like, it all depends on how much longer the system
it's a new level of evolution. And and if you think about it in a way, human beings are actually engineering the next stage of their own evolution, because in what way have we really stopped evolving? We
think we're going to destroy the Earth.
You think we're going to destroy the Earth before we reach the next stage of evolution?
No, we're going to like severely like fuck up the planet so that we have a different type of culture, right? Like, I don't think like the current modern setup, like hyper exploitative global capitalism,
right?
That's not gonna this many people, like, we're gonna have to do something to change it. Like, I kind of thought, like, until recently, I kind of thought that like the 1% was sort of somewhat aware of that, right? The fact that this current system wasn't going to last, like the declining rate of profit and all, like since the 70s, that like they haven't been making more money. They've just been like further slicing into the workers' cut of the profits, right? Like, it hasn't been, they haven't found ways to like innovate more profit. They've just been able to innovate the workers out of their fair share. And like, people are already like Walmart, like Bernie just did that study, he just commissioned it, that showed that like Walmart, McDonald's employees were taking an inordinate amount of like federal subsidies. That is already happening. There's not much more you can count. Like, people already aren't making a living wage. You can't take that much more from the workers, so that's cutting into their rate of profit. So like to find new innovations that are going to make them, they can keep doing their global growth, you know, like if they're not growing like 1% to 2% every year, at least they're failing, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the standard economic model we have now. And for the longest time, I thought that like they were somewhat aware of the fact that that was ending. They'd have to adapt, but I don't think that's their plan, right? I think their plan is to just make the current setup even more exploitative.
Let's see from the chat here, Lucifer Rockefeller. If worse comes to worse, we stick some solar shades and invest more in nuclear.
Yeah, I think that's probably their plan, right? Like if you ever hear like a right winger who's admits that climate change is coming, most of them say we need to just do nukes, right? And I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it. Like I'm not committed to it. I'm fine with nukes, right? I think nukes would be fine. I think we just need to. The reason they've been expensive and unsafe and kind of shitty so far is because they've been undermined by fossil fuels at every step of the way, right? They've done.
So you're saying like the path to clean energy involves heavily relying on nuclear power?
I think that's what the capitalists want, right? They don't want to have like miles and miles of solar farms and
wind farms and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they don't want that, and it would be a hassle. Like I think it would be easier, right? Like we could basically figure out a design and then just start mass producing like smallish like nuclear reactors with like you could standardize the fuel. You can make like fuel pellets so that it was like not that dangerous, and then have let's thousands of years of supply. And solar shades I would be fine with. I just worry with them would be if it ever fucks up, right? And then it would completely throw everything off. Like not like we'd burn up in a second, but like it would just completely destroy whatever weather pattern we had. And I feel like it would just be hard to get it exactly perfect. But I feel like that's what they're going to do. Like they're not going to stop the growth, right? They're going to try to do it so that they can just keep being as extractive as they've been.
They go vacuum
right?
tap.
I mean, I don't know. Like, we can come back to our Area 51 discussion, right? Like,
well, let me play that. Let me play that video that you passed me first, so we can go ahead and look what you're talking about. It gives you kind of a
hint at what they think is coming.
All right. Let's see.
Will own nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, 3D printing.
So I'm saying they're accepting that it's going to happen.
Right.
Oh, we'll finally have a carbon tax.
Yeah. Hold on.
We should have had 20 years ago.
Why Mars?
Western values capitalism.
Yeah.
We can't let the angry mobs take over.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that gives you a picture of what like you said, what they think is coming. I mean, they're already expecting there's going to be a climate catastrophe involving the displacement of 1 billion people.
Yeah, they're not going to go to Mars though, Like they might go explore it, but they're not going to like move to Mars because it's going to be shitty, right? They might have like Elysium style space station or something.
Listen, Mars is too much of a hassle. Venus is a much better option. Well, okay, so
Venus would be easier to terraform if that was your
think
plan.
So?
Yeah, Venus, you have everything there. You don't like, not everything there, but you have a lot of what you need already there because the atmosphere is so thick. You can like freeze
Well,
out the atmosphere, and then it's on the land. Then you have all the water and shit from the atmosphere, and a lot of raw materials.
The problem with Venus is that greenhouse gas effect because of that atmosphere you were talking about, right?
Yeah. So what you would do is you put up a sunshade. It freezes the atmosphere, and then the atmosphere freezes and falls to the surface.
If the problem with like that is too much CO2 in the Venus atmosphere, wouldn't you try something like that to fix the problem with the Earth first?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, but the thing is, there's no, like on Earth, you don't get there's no money to be made, right? Like you have to, like somebody could pay you to do it, right? But no one's going to do it just for kicks. Like on Venus, you could go and like make the whole planet yourself. Like you could have your own planet, right? Like
to go ahead and terraform it up.
I kind of feel like that's what they're going to do. I think the habitats will be first, right? But I think eventually that's their goal. Like within the next 100 years, is to start
go ahead and
making claims,
terraforming.
Yeah, man, capital's not going to stop. They need new markets, right? They need new sources to colonize.
To me, though, I think that you have a better shot at probably terraforming Mars because you've already proven on one planet that you could go ahead and use a greenhouse gas effect by accident. Imagine if you try to do that on purpose to create a more sustainable atmosphere.
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't have the gases there. You have to import them. Like the best thing would be if you could take Venus's atmosphere and like transfer it to Mars.
Right.
Like you would need to pump like so much like oxygen into it. You need to import so much water.
You don't think there's any natural resources on Mars that if you could use to intentionally inject a high level of CO2 the way that you have here? I mean, because here,
it's like in the Kim Stanley Robinson books, right? Like there's easier ways to do it. Like it's easier, like if you're going for just the right pressure, so you can walk around without a spacesuit, there's easier ways to like flood the atmosphere with gases, but then you can't breathe it.
Right. So this makes it a little more.
If you're going for a breathable planet like an Earth-like biosphere, you can't just flood CO2 into the atmosphere. You have to put the right mix of oxygen and nitrogen. There's no nitrogen there is the problem. So
there's also no nitrogen there?
There's no nitrogen on Mars. Okay. No.
Well, it says, let's see, Lucifer over here says that Mars also doesn't have a core to make a shield, plus the wobble's a little too erratic. So when we were talking about like
the shield,
you're talking about like the electromagnetic field, right? Where you have
you can do that with magnets in space pretty easily.
Yeah, I wonder about because like Earth has that. If people that don't know, like there's theoretically the entire core of the Earth is a solid chunk of iron, where the inner core is made out of that, and the outer core is a spinning ball of liquid that goes ahead.
Yeah, it's like liquid.
Right, and it creates
the dynamo.
Yeah, it creates the EM field, gives us a magnetic north and south poles, all that sort of stuff, but also protects us from the solar winds. That's important.
Yeah, so like they're looking, the what's it called? There's a seismometer on the surface right now that's supposed to be checking see what it can figure out about the core.
Right.
But like the gases don't float away right away. Like if you brought enough gas to the Martian atmosphere that it would, like if you brought an Earth-like atmosphere to Mars, it would last for like 100,000 years before it dissipated to space. So like the magnetic field is not a deal breaker. You can do it without that. I mean,
it's more about what you're talking about with the nitrogen levels and getting the right mix of the gases, right?
Yeah, you'd have to like import it from like Titan or Jupiter or somewhere like that.
If you're already traveling out that far, then you might as well terraform Titan.
Yeah, I mean, I think Titan would be your best bet, right? Titan,
well, because as far as like livable temperatures and stuff, those moons do derive some kind of heat from the planet in that instance, right?
Well, like they think they have the liquid oceans on. I think Titan has one too, but Europa.
The problem with those was the consistency or the what they're mixed up of is of methane oceans, right? They're liquid methane.
Titan, they're like lakes. They're
right.
There's an icy part under the South Pole that's frozen over, and then on the surface there's the methane lakes.
But
like the other ones are like a ball of ice or a ball of water with an icy shell on Europa, and there's one on Saturn too that's also like that. I forget what it's called, but those would be interesting to like look for aliens in the ocean.
Yeah,
but, like in terms of
you're talking about microbiology though, in that sense.
I think there might be bigger shit. Maybe
really
depends. I don't know. I mean, if it's they think that the composition of, like I said, not Europa, the other one, the one around Saturn.
It's Titan, isn't
Enceladus.
it?
Enceladus.
Okay.
They think Enceladus has an Earth-like ocean.
Okay.
Because they were able to test the chemicals from the sample they got.
So, so again for Lucifer, but without a shield, solar winds will tear away any atmosphere that isn't sufficiently thick enough.
I think Ganymede is far enough from Jupiter's from Jupiter's radiation that you could have some shit on Ganymede, but the rest of them you would need, like you said, a thick shield. I think that's down the road a bit, right? Like you would want to have some sort of like automated ship that you could build, mass produce on Mars or like on an asteroid out that way,
so
and
then
have it go and get the nitrogen from Jupiter and run it back to, like they did in the Kim Stanley Robinson book. They had like automated ships that went out to deep space and brought it back to Mars on a cycle.
Like atmosphere farming.
Yeah, basically, like you would go and suck like all the gases from the Jupiter atmosphere.
So wait, do you buy that theory that Mars at one point or another had intelligent life and like a society and everything else?
No. I mean, no, I don't. I mean, whose theory is that? Like,
well, I mean, it's a well-known theory, you know, that at one point or another there was ancient life. No?
Yeah, there's the theory about the like the nuclear fallout on the Martian surface, like 144,000 years ago or something.
Something like that. But I mean, it depends. I mean, they haven't really been able to explore if there has been something like that. I mean,
I
know
think
that
there's microbial life there. I think there probably has been. There might be some complex life cycles under the surface there. There might be some weird like fungal mats, like some. They might be advanced like that, but there's not enough like energy and nutrients on the surface to support complex ecosystem. Well, but we don't know what's going on underground there. There could be.
I mean, now, but I mean, how was the surface of Mars eons ago?
It was good. They think it was good for a little bit, like several billion years ago. They think like they know the surface used to be wet, but that was billions of years ago.
Yeah,
and you know they call it the period, right? Like it was when it was wet. So they I don't think they had enough time, like the time period when it was the right setup, when it had an Earth-like atmosphere on the surface, wasn't long enough for that much complex life to evolve.
Okay.
Like it could have done some stuff where it helped like simple life get going and then retreat underground. I think something like that might have happened, like on the surface, like simple life flourished for a short period, and then as it got colder, it retreated into the core, you know, like into the crust, and then did some shit down there. And I think, like I said, I think it could still be alive in like underground on Mars, because we have, you know, like everywhere on Earth we've looked, we've found something alive, like even in deep within the core, you know, with like incredible pressure and no light. Like there's stuff that doesn't need sunlight, stuff that just lives off of like chemical reactions. Totally could be something like that. Like I'm bullish on like simple life. I think there's probably simple life like other places in the solar system.
Yeah,
I don't think anything complex.
Yeah, I mean, so you know, back to like we were talking about with like the whole Area 51 thing and all that kind of stuff. So as far as UFOs and all that kind of stuff, as far as that technology, if you would think that maybe something archaeological was discovered at one point or another, where do you think the origin of that would have been from?
I think it's some part in Earth's history. I think that's the most likely example. It'd be, you know, some point in, 100,000 years ago or like a long time ago. I think at some point in there, because that's what we would do, right? Like if we were sufficiently advanced that we could send ships to another star system, we would send, a ship with like simple AIs or, as advanced AIs as we could figure out, potentially like somebody frozen in stasis or something,
I would err more towards based on what we were saying, I would err more towards the artificial life aspect of it.
Yeah, I think so. It could be something like that, and then it crashed on Earth when it was done its mission.
Right.
And that's what we found eventually, and that's what they were able to reverse engineer for the Tic Tac and stuff. Yeah. Because I don't think we came up with that shit ourselves.
Well, no, I mean, this is the thing. I don't think that we came up with anything. I don't know if anything was. I don't know if we would have the capabilities to go ahead and reverse engineer anything that far advanced. It's like what they said on that on the other Rogan podcast when they had the was it the Navy guy on. When he was trying to go ahead and send when they
reactor
that's what it's anything else if you would go ahead and send something out that far advanced to a previous era in time, they're not going to be capable of going ahead and reverse engineering something like a nuclear reactor.
So we wouldn't know how to make like spaceships, right? But we could take it apart and use the engine on something like the Tic Tac, like a drone or whatever those things are, whatever small ship those are. I think that's probably the extent of what we managed to do with the technology. We haven't been able to like mass produce it and, lead to any kind of revolution with it. Because if we could, then they would be public about it, right? Like, I think if they knew what they were doing with it, they wouldn't be so secretive about it.
Are you actually? I did say I was gonna pull up that Tic Tac video. So why don't we go ahead and look at it? Cause
which one's the good one? There's 3 of them: the Tic Tac, the Go Fast, and the third one is the.
This is the one that was released by the Pentagon that was filmed by the.
They released pilots. 3 of them, right?
Well, let me go to this one. Let's see. Hope you guys can see that. There we go.
Dude, this is on, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
It's more impressive when they describe what it's doing, though.
Thing, dude.
Yeah, that's what I think happened, Lucifer. I think at some point in Earth's history, they sent automated ships here, and then eventually it crashed.
Well, if there's another thing.
Right. Yeah, that I kind of fall down in that same area.
Because I think Earth would have been obviously habitable, you know. Oh, we got the lock on it. Yeah. They usually don't get the lock on the UFOs like that.
Yeah.
But is he like? I like where they describe how fast it's going and all. Like there's a way, like I've seen videos where they like break it down and say like, okay, it's doing this capability, like. Because it's like there's no exhaust. There's no engine exhaust. So it's a completely different kind of propulsion.
Right. So that's why you were saying that it doesn't that it's not something that we would conventionally think of some kind of technology that we have.
Yeah, and if it's something else, if it's like, you know, like 0 point energy or like anti-gravity, that would be completely revolutionize our entire like energy, you know, infrastructure now, right? Like,
hey, talking about a way to move off from fossil fuels, right?
That's it. They won't do it until, I don't know. Like if it's the kind of thing where if it's like free energy, you know, like they might be hesitant to do it. But if it's the kind of thing where it's like a technology to like master and exploit, you know, they would. There'd be an arms race again, right?
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't want anything shaken up too much. Like they don't want to destroy, you know, capitalism, right? Like they want it to be just like something they can.
Okay, you see, like that shit was crazy at the end, where it moves just completely off the fucking what's able to be perceived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was doing. Like if you listen to the guys like break it down, like the speed how it got from like where they pinged it the first time to where they pinged it the second time. It was like way too fast for anything on Earth.
Well, on Rogan, the dude specified how fast the things were going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I can pull that one up, but you know what? We've been on here for 3 hours again, bro. I think we probably sign off. Let's see. Hold on. Hey, did you guys hear about the recent study about room temp superconductors? If we made advancement on it, we would reach the stars very soon. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. It needs like a weird pressure environment, though. I think the new one they have, or maybe the new one they have doesn't. Like it's not room temp either. It's like it's above zero. You know, like usually they need to have it. They usually need to have it be like, you know, as close to absolute zero as possible. So the new ones, it can be closer to like regular zero, like 0 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
But I think they need to have it in like a very high pressure room or like a weird atmospheric mix or something like that. It's not quite like mass producible yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you could figure out some sort of like true, like room temperature superconductor, you could have, you know, like all the energy you put into it stays in it. You know, you don't have to, like, you can recycle, reuse your own energy. It works in liquid nitrogen temp. Yeah, so that's not that cold, right? So like, if you could figure that out, you'd be able to do the, not the, what's it called? The guy, the professor, he was on Rogan too. The professor at UCLA, not the.
Well, let me pull up the Rogan clip. Hopefully we're simulcasting, but hopefully we don't get a strike on us for YouTube. But let's go to it. Why not?
6 months of my life doing your research project for you.
Right.
So and you get nothing, and then you assume the government's covering up when the government really isn't. They just, you know, the guys.
Let me know the volume's good in the chat, guys.
Access to it. So.
Makes sense. Jamie, we have the video. Okay, here we go. Now, explain what are we seeing and why are we seeing it in this this particular
Okay,
shade?
so we'll just kind of go around. So if you look at the OPRs operate in the top left corner. NAR is narrow field of view, which is zoomed in. IR at the top middle, it means it's in infrared mode. So instead of seeing color, you're seeing temperature variations. Okay. And these things are extremely sensitive to in like tenths of degrees. They will tell you the difference due to color. So it'll go from black to white. So in this case, white is hot. So if you look down in the bottom left corner, it says WHT. That's white. It means white is hot. So the object that you're looking at is hotter than the sky around it. But what you also notice is there's no plumes. Now, if you're looking at an airplane,
that's what you were
get
talking
closer,
about,
you'll actually see the exhaust coming out, and there will be a really glowing plume. That's important as we look at the video. And then most of the stuff on here you really don't need to know. What you can look at is the bottom right corner. It says 19,990 and a B. That's the altitude. And if you look up in the little words where it says HDG and then BALT, it's autopilot. So it's on altitude hold. It's just flying for that. So you can go ahead and play the video.
Oh, yeah. Hold
and
on,
so those two bars next to the white object,
yeah, we have that thing open to take a hyperlink. So you want to go ahead and link us to something, then yeah, you can go ahead and do that in the chat. We'll pull it up.
That's a passive track. So what he's done is he's commanded the FLIR to track that. So what the system does is it uses, it's actually tracking, it can track pixels, and it's just basically block those hot pixels, those white pixels from the black ones. And then you're going to see now, pause it real quick. So up at the top, see it went to a white screen with the black object. This is a black and white TV mode. And if you look at the top, it says TV. So narrow in TV mode is actually, you can get closer than narrow in IR. It's literally, narrow in IR is about medium in TV mode. So you can get closer with the TV mode. So as you look at it now, in this case, you would actually start to see stuff going on. And even in TV mode, because you get exhaust, you know, the black exhaust that comes out, you'll usually be able to see kind of some of that coming out of the back, and you don't see anything. This thing's just sitting there. And if you look at the top where it says 3 right, that's the pod is looking 3 degrees right of the nose there.
I don't know if I trust this guy.
Right? So he's just flying along the bottom numbers. In the Navy? Don't worry, those are time.
No, I'm just like his demeanor.
So go ahead and hit play.
Like,
Well, he was the one that saw
and
the shit.
what he's doing
Right.
is Chad's going through all the different modes because he's like, oh, I got it. And he's going to try and see the best video that he can get. Now, there's rumors that this video is like 10 minutes long. No, what you're looking at is the entire video. Now, notice where it says 99.9. So hit pause real quick. What that means is while he's got the pod, the targeting pod, because that's his primary sensor right now, the radar is still trying to look at this object and trying to range it, and the radar can't get ranging on it. So the object is doing something to say, I'm not giving you back, because it's just a Doppler radar, just like a police radar is a Doppler. It's trying to get a ranging on you, and it can't do it. So when it says 99.9,
Right,
the radar
so it has
cannot
some kind of
see
stealth
this object
technology.
right now. It's not allowing it to get ranging.
And I think that's super important, Dave, the way he
Well,
explained
what
it to me.
kind of-
Active jamming.
Yeah, that's like active jamming. Like, what
Right.
kind of, like, that's a feature that would have it so that you can't radar ping it, but you can see it in invisible, like invisible light. That's a weird setup, right? Like, are they from, is it from a planet where they don't have visible light, where they have, where they see in ultraviolet or something?
But what they're talking about is active jamming, so you have to have something that they would
Yeah,
have
but
had
I'm
to
saying-
create to anticipate that.
Yeah, but we can see it.
Mhm.
So, like, what's the point of having active jamming if you can see it in visible spectrum, right? You can see it with your
Well,
eyes.
well,
Like, the
that's
active
true.
jamming is for the radar spectrum,
Right.
but, like, they can see it.
Yeah, it's redirecting light is a bit harder than other signals. Well, I mean that's true. Let's see. Let me keep playing this.
Compared to passive jamming, this is a technology that is actively jamming
okay, I see what you
this
mean.
system.
Rather than something like stealth aircraft, which is the shape and the
he should
texture of the.
Yeah, it's because everyone thinks stealth is invisible. It's not. It's a technology to basically make it harder for radars to see you. And that's the whole thing. If you look at airplanes that are nose on are harder to see than airplanes at the sides. Kind of like think of a barn door. If you're looking at the whole barn door, it's really easy to see. If I turn the barn door sideways where it's really thin, it's going to be a lot harder for you to see it.
Got it.
So that's the easiest, most basic way to look at this. So keep going. You can play again. And you can look, the airplane is still sitting at 20,000 feet. It's doing 250 knots. He's going to go through different modes and try and lock it. And it's just kind of sitting, and all of a sudden, as the video goes on, I think it's a minute and a half long. See, it's going to try and reacquire. It recenters the pod. So it's slowly drifting to the left. The Hornet is still going the same heading, just kind of hanging out. And they're just filming this thing. And then when they get close, it's going to zing off the left-hand side. When you see it on a full, because this, you think digital, you'd be able to get a one-for-one copy. Unlike, when you copy your album to a cassette, you lose a little quality. Well, you still do in digital.
You see that?
Off it goes to the left. And that's pretty fast to leave that field of view. When we have big monitors that we look at these when they come back, so we're looking at the original tapes. So
Play the end of that again, please, Jamie. So when it's taking off, how fast? When it just sort of like leaves the field of view,
that's what I wanted
takes
to
off to
know.
the left. How
Yeah.
fast is that going?
I would say pretty fast. It's an estimate. If we had ranging, you could obviously do the triangle and go, hey, because we know how big the field of view is. But for something to leave the field of view that fast with the pod just staring is pretty fast. I mean, it's like out of here.
Like nothing that we have?
No, because we can't. I don't care what airplane is. So let's just use the F-22 Raptor. That's probably it's probably the best airplane in the world right now, performance-wise. It can't take off like that, especially if it's a hover. I mean, you're talking something that's just sitting in space in the wind, and then it just all of a sudden accelerates. Airplanes don't work that way.
And it's not leaving any exhaust plume.
No, notice there's
that's
none.
true,
And when
too.
you go back
Again,
to the
Jamie,
IR,
at the end?
Even in the IR, you don't.
yeah, see, there's IR zoomed in, and there's no.
Yeah, like,
you would
what
see a
could
plume
it
if that was an
be?
airplane.
It's creepy how it takes off.
Yeah.
With active jamming, it's intelligently controlled. There's no rotors, there's no plumes, there's no exhaust, there's no tail fin, there's no tail number. This thing
What's it doing,
goes from a
though?
standstill,
That's the other thing.
takes off.
Like,
it's a propulsion system we don't have in our inventory.
is
and
it
no other
like
nation
spying
does.
on
That's
the
how it's
Navy
understood by the
ships?
government.
Wasn't there like a
Now
naval
that-
platoon fleet
that's-
in the ocean?
Yeah,
So if
I mean,
the
you've seen them
fastest
all
plane
around at
on
military
Earth was trying
installations.
to
Yeah,
do that same
but
maneuver.
that's
This
also where
system
you
would
would
be able to
see
track it.
if it was,
Yeah, well, yeah, it would stay with it.
secret program.
Yeah. I think that's good enough for what we were talking
I mean,
about.
if it's not, then what else could it be, right? Like,
Yeah.
do you
let's
think
see,
it could
from
be?
Lucifer. All right, you don't have to check out the link. You don't have to. Just interesting if you guys want to look at it. Oh yeah. I mean,
I sent it in the.
yeah.
chat.
We'll check it out. Let's see. We'll check out a little bit of it. It's a 13-minute video. Let's see.
Superconductor.
Yeah, guys, we can we'll pull up stuff. Y'all send stuff to us and
temperatures. But let's take things a little bit
slower. If you're real cool, we can put you up on the stream with us.
First of all, let's actually go back in time a little bit and talk about the history of electricity. Well, not the whole history, just the nutshell.
Yeah.
Basically, approximately 100 years ago, if you were to talk to anyone in, for example, United States or Europe, and you were to tell them, and it wasn't until the 1930s that of these advances when it comes to essentially making our lives slightly easier and, of course, more efficient. Since we can kind of acknowledge the humanity to discover is
they won't do anything now unless they can make money off of it.
It's essentially a quantum mechanics effect. An effect that becomes apparent in certain materials once they reach certain conditions, usually temperature.
That's the problem. Like they say, like, you know, capitalism breeds innovation and all. But that's not true at all.
It shows you how certain materials
it's the exact opposite.
And
like socialism would breed innovation.
Levitating and floating things that can move without any resistance whatsoever.
Oh, that's cool.
And the principle here, which is based on quantum mechanics, is actually a little bit complex, but I'll try to simplify it. Basically, in certain
this is like the Woodward
once
effect.
A certain temperature is reached, the material will expel all of the magnetic
where, like, you
fields from
fly
within
a spaceship
and will
just on like its own,
ignoring any kind of electrical resistance as well. In other words, a typical superconductor will conduct electricity with zero resistance. And interestingly, for the past 25 years, an experiment by Royal Observatory of Belgium, located
you can sort of like bounce it off the magnetic field to get it started,
essentially proving
and you sort of siphon that energy, like spit it back and forth.
Like a was essentially levitating nonstop without losing any charge.
Like one of those things they have at like Brookstone, the balls that like clap into each other.
What are they called? I know what they're. What the hell are those?
You could
those
basically
balls called?
do that, like, you know, ad infinitum, right? And like make a spaceship go really fast. I mean, I don't think anybody's.
But you think
they haven't done it?
Yeah, but I mean, as far as the technology that we were seeing with that Tic Tac thing, I mean, what would you link that back to? Is it? I mean,
what do I think it is?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's some sort of like magnetic, like propulsion, like some sort of way to like harness the Earth's magnetic field.
Yeah.
Or some sort of, like I said, like anti-gravity thing. Like,
right.
Somehow.
I mean that makes that makes sense.
Off of gravity.
Fusion, maybe some kind of fusion, but
yeah, it could be like a microreactor, I guess.
Yeah.
Like something, but then I think there would be a heat signal though. That's
yeah.
what I don't get.
Well, I mean, there was at least a differentiation in temperature between the craft and the atmosphere around it, right?
Wasn't it colder though? It was like
no, it was hotter. It was hot.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, a fusion reactor there would probably be spitting out like so. Yeah, I don't think it would to speed a ship that fast. Like it would have to be going really hot.
Right.
So like, I mean, I guess they could have some sort of like induction type thing where it could like suck energy out of the atmosphere nearby and like, you know, like light it on fire right away and like spit it out the back, something like that.
Maybe.
Like. I don't think you could do that fast enough to get enough, like just mass, like because they have like the what's it called, the ion engines, right? They can, you know, like basically suck up gas from the atmosphere and spit it back out and like speed it up and spit it out, you know. So maybe something like that. But I said like I feel like that would be a lot more like.
Let's see, a small version of a warp drive. Well, because you've seen a lot of those craft. What's interesting is that they don't just hover or they don't just fly through the air. I mean, some of them go through water and then up all the way through the atmosphere. You've seen craft that have done that too, or reports of craft that have done that too.
I mean, if it can light the air, suck the air out of the atmosphere and light it on fire, like it could do the same with the water probably.
Yeah.
All
right, guys. I think
something like that, like if it could, you know, yeah. I mean, I'm like just trying to like lowball it, like trying to make it like the least amazing technology possible, right? Like if it's some sort of tech that we don't know about,
right?
And it's something that's
relatable back to something that we can understand, maybe.
Yeah, that's why I said the magnetic field thing, because that would be like the easiest sort of like breakthrough to make.
Yeah.
Based on where we are now. But then if it's something, because like I'm not, that would be guaranteed. Like that would be saying it didn't, like it's not alien. Like you know, an alien ship would have to get here, right? So that couldn't be its propulsion all the time. It couldn't travel through space with like some sort of magnetic engine, right? So that would also imply that it was like Earth made.
Or it could imply that there's some kind of outpost that we don't know about either.
So let's see, that'd be another explanation. So there's aliens who are actively surveilling us from somewhere,
right?
Which would imply that it's some sort of like interdimensional thing, right? So they can just kind of bounce in and out. So
well,
we would see a spaceship coming towards us, like if there was a giant, like, you know,
like an Independence Day kind of situation.
Yeah, you could see that from a mile. Like it would look like a star. Like it was like a fusion engine burning in the atmosphere, or you know, in the space. You'd see it. Like.
All right, I think we can go ahead and sign off right there. I appreciate everybody for coming in and joining up on the stream. If you're not following us yet, go ahead, hit that follow button. If you're on YouTube, you know, hit that subscribe button. We go ahead and stream most nights, so we'll be on most of the time at around midnight on the East Coast. But yeah.
Let me see if there's anybody still streaming.
Yeah, we'll see if Matt finds somebody to go ahead and raid y'all too. But yeah, what do you got over there, bro?
Pay it forward.
Yeah, of course.
Hey guys, you should follow us and check out our stuff.
Yeah, we'll link up all our stuff in the playback of this thing. We got a subreddit set up now. It's pretty dope. I'm gonna make our subreddit tight. Yeah, or
that's my new goal.
Yeah, we'll get it done. I think our Twitter account's getting pretty decent. Follow us over there at UnelectableA.
I'm like bored with that though. I just wanna.
Well, we'll figure out a way to divvy it up. But all right, can I go ahead and let me click it out?
All right. Hold on a second. The screen's too small to hit go. All right, later.
Yep.